All right, we are live. Thank you for watching, family. You're live, not just on my channel, but you're live on whoever you follow today. So before we get started, let me just say, if anybody is watching on X, YouTube, Twitch, Kick, or Rumble, do me a favor, repost it, share it out. If you're following your favorite content creator, your favorite podcaster, if they shared it on theirs, do me a favor, repost it on their channels as well. It helps them with their metrics and gets the viewership that they deserve. And then if anybody has any pressing questions, we are not going to answer any questions today. We're just going to look at your comment. I'm just kidding. We'll answer some of them, I'm sure. But before we get into it, we're going to bring them up. I'm excited. We've got a really great lineup today, and I'm just excited. This is a one and done, by the way. I don't know if we're going to continue. I really don't know. It's really up to Nick. Nick is he's a totem, and if he says that we're not good enough, we're not going to continue. But I'm just kidding. All right, let's get right into it. Today's episode is brought to you by 5 and 7 Tactical Solutions. For those of you that are passionate about the Second Amendment rights, like I am, and you want to get learned, if you want to get trained on how to handle firearms, go to 5 and 7 Tactical Solutions LLC.com. They're friends of mine. They're the ones that got certified in terms of certifications and all those things. And my very good friend David Padilla, 20 years law enforcement. He's he's the guy that got famous where his daughter almost got kidnapped at Costco a couple years ago. And they did that video, and he talked about it here on our podcast. And I'm glad I connected with him because he is passionate about teaching people not just how to handle firearms, but even self-defense tactics. So if you want to go to 5 and 7 Tactical Solutions LLC.com, be sure to, in the promo code section, use gLO 808. You get $25 off of any training package. Or if you're a VIP and you need security, they've got a pretty legit security team as well that they'll be your entourage if you need them to be. Okay, I'll shut up. Today's episode, we've got Artie, Tommy, Waylon, Nick, Pedro, and we've had some guests in this circle where Dr. Jill Stein, who is a presidential candidate. We've had some Duncan Trussels in some of our you'll see when we get into it. Just some great people. We got some veterans that are going to be speaking today. Waylon, who is kind of like a pioneer, and he's an evangelist in the area of indoor farming. We've got Artie, who is the owner of Thoughtfully Mindless LLC. They do a podcast, which is basically open discussions. Just kind of really, he's got a big net, if you will, if I put it that way. And he's very understanding, always has deep conversations, and he welcomes confrontational conversations because he does it very respectfully. Nobody is spitting from the third row, getting all heated. He's actually very good about those type of discussions. Tommy is also the founder of Tommy Christie's Show, available on Spotify. He's a great photographer too. If you guys are not following Tommy on Instagram, he's got some legit photography. And of course, Nick. We'll talk about Nick. We're going to pick on him today because I had a hard time editing his photo for our video, and it's his head, bro. You'll see. But we'll pick on him. But he's got I think it's called Laughing Stoic Buddha, and we're going to pick on him for that because I don't know what that is, but I'm pretty sure it's legit. But he had Duncan Trussell on his podcast. That's one of my all-time favorites. And then we got Pedro, who is someone that I definitely confide in a lot, especially in the area of audio quality and excellence in audio. And so we've got all these guys in the room, and we're just glad that you're here. Do me a favor. If you got headphones or earbuds, put them on because you don't want to miss any of the conversations because of the ambient noise going on. If you got kids, we'll give them an iPad, make them watch YouTube, Netflix. Okay, maybe not Netflix, but keep them occupied so you can focus on these conversations because it's going to be good. And we'll be back in about a minute. What is it? I always forget how long it is. It's a minute and 32 seconds. We'll be right back with the Podcasters Roundtable. Oh, brother. Look at that.
That music is everything. I just want to say that music is everything on that promo right there.
I pay $30 a month to have access to that, so that way I don't get hit with copyright.
Yeah.
Hey, Waylon, Nick, Artie, Pedro, thank you, man. Appreciate you guys.
Happy to be here, man.
Nick, you're really clean, bro. Like, you didn't start work yet? Like,
No, dude, I never start work. I just show up to work and then I do podcasts in my truck,
Yeah. Man, we got to go around in a circle. Hey, Waylon, do you have a show today?
No.
Okay.
No, it's my day off.
Well, let me say I appreciate you guys. I think I was going through all of you guys' content, and it's funny that you know how you have a respect for somebody in terms of whether it's content or even how they curate it or even how they produce it. And I think everybody on this table, man, there's a nice palette, right? Like everybody's got a different palette, and I appreciate all of that. I already said it the other day. I think I'm learning. I'm still learning today. And here is the man himself. He missed our fancy intro. What's up, Tommy? Yes, sir.
What's up, brother? Can you hear me?
Yeah, we hear you loud and clear, bro.
How you guys doing?
Good, good. Hey, since you missed the intro, you got to do your EA Sports intro for everybody. So it's on you.
EA Sports. It's in the game.
For people that don't know, Tommy is the guy he's the voice of EA Sports. If you didn't know that, he's the official guy.
Not officially. Unofficial.
Unofficial, official. Hey, we'll get right into this question. Somebody asked Matt Harrington on X, how has the job of a podcast editor changed in recent times? That's a good question. I don't know. Somebody take that.
We got AI now, so that I use AI for making my clips. I use Opus clips for that, so that helps a lot because you can kind of lean on the AI to kind of pick some of those moments in the conversation rather than having to listen through all of it and make sure it's all good. I don't use AI for editing the full podcast or anything like that, but at least for clips, it's a big deal for me.
Do you trust? I've tried a few, but I'm still old school. I listen to is that narcissistic if I listen to my own podcast over and over again?
Not at all.
Not at all. And I think as podcasters, some people say, I don't like the sound of my voice. Well, you got to get past that because you're going to be hearing your voice and your guest voice when you start the editing process. But like Artie says, AI has been incorporated with a lot of third-party softwares and to allow for ease of editing a podcast, especially video podcasts. Again, you do the clips and extra content is definitely great, but even some of the audio only, if you're only doing audio, no visual, definitely has been baked into Adobe Audition, Descript, and some of the other softwares that are out there.
I don't use AI.
Okay.
The Opus Clip it's a paid service as well, right, Artie?
Yeah, you pay for it. You buy credits, which like each minute is like 1 credit. There's other things too. Like there's Opus is definitely not the only one, but it's just what I use.
I like the sound of my voice when I'm live. I hate it when I listen on replays. It's a weird thing.
You got a great voice, man.
Yeah.
Yeah, I like your voice. I think.
Thank you.
I don't like my own voice. I don't like listening to my podcast either. I like listening to the guests, not myself.
Oh, here's a question before I forget. Timestamps. So I do timestamps on X, right? Is there an app or something where it'll find those chapters and just kind of pre-select them and timestamp them for you?
So I know in Premiere Pro, with the video and the AI that's built into it, it'll actually go in. If you have those timestamps already established, it'll go in there and get that and then get some of the best parts and then cut everything, condense it to, a palatable size, and kind of like Opus Clip does with putting the clips out there, giving you the best clips of what you get.
Gotcha.
I know.
Let me acknowledge. I'll jump in right after this, Tommy. AI Rich says hello everybody. He also says he hates the sound of his own voice. Kai, or I'm sorry, Kel CP. I think how you say it. Hello everybody, and also
That's Kelly.
Kelly. Hello Kelly. How are you? Good to see you. And Marcus says let's go. A lot of these are from Waylon's, Ohana, and of course I think some of Pedro's as well. So, I'm sorry. Go ahead, Tommy.
Yeah, I was going to say, do you guys know the app Snipped? Have you ever heard of that one?
Sounds painful.
It's not that painful. It's SNIPD, and it's like an AI podcast app. I like it for when you listen to podcasts. You can create snips, and then you can sync it up with your Notion. So you can like literally save podcast clipped notes to your Notion. And what you can do is if you get the premium subscription on Snipped, you can request to have your own podcast in Snipped and request to have Snipped, like the AI app. They'll make it. Like I'm on this like Joe Rogan podcast now, and it has like 2-minute clips that were snipped out by the AI tech in Snipped. So I think that's a good tool.
For the chapters, I tried this, but it didn't work when I last tried it. But I use Riverside for recording, and it creates a transcript and an SRT file for subtitles, which I usually don't use. I think you should be able to do this if ChatGPT can read the file correctly, but SRT files are basically just transcripts with timestamps on them. So I think you should be able to, I don't know if you can right now, maybe I'll try it again soon, but you should be able to use that to create chapters at some point because it has those timestamps. But when I last tried it like 6 months ago, it didn't work.
You know how many times my wife is like, she's like, hurry up, honey. And it takes me hours just on Twitter, on X alone, just to type out those chapters.
Yeah.
And I'm typing each one, right? So that's what I was asking.
Well, I kind of like the process. It's very meditative. It requires you to like, just to use an analogy, it's like you think LeBron James, he watches his game tape. We should all be watching our game tape.
True. That's a good point. Wow. Okay. Dropping the gold nuggets already. We're only 14 minutes in. We got the golden nugget number 1. Thank you, Tommy. What the heck, bro? That's actually a good point, and that's why that's why I hate the sound of my voice, because I've listened to so many hours of it, and it's like I'm tired of hearing. My wife probably would argue that I love the sound of my own voice, but for point of reference, guys, when we do our podcast, my wife's desk is like right in front of me, so our desks are back to back, and so we're looking at each other organically, right? So anytime I do a podcast, she's looking right at me, so she corrects me and course corrects. I think that's the correct word. Course corrects.
She just throws you a look and I forgot. Gotcha.
Yeah.
That's awesome that you have that support though, man. It's hard to do all alone. I agree though. I think you got to watch a little bit. You got to at least check out parts that you think you need improvement on, and you're like, let's see how the intro was. Let's see, do I want to script it? Do I not want to script it? I like to be spontaneous, but also somewhat structured at the same time. It's hard to do both,
One of the painful things for me is when I go back and watch an episode and I see that I missed the chance to ask a really cool question. And I'll fucking keep me up at night, dude. I'll just be like, ooh, right there, I should have gone in this direction. Like you sort of see in the moment that you didn't quite understand what someone was sharing. And then you go, oh, and then luckily, if you get a chance to get them back on the podcast a second time, you can, take notes and save the day. But yeah, that's the hardest part for me. I don't mind listening to my own voice. After Tommy said on my podcast, I have the most masculine lesbian voice of any man that he knows. So I can listen to this voice all day, but it really kills me when I miss a chance to ask a good question or go somewhere deeper with somebody. And it's just right there. I'm just looking at myself like, oh, dude, you missed it.
I do want to clarify. Nick said that his voice was a lesbian voice, and I was like, if it is, it's a very masculine lesbian voice. So I didn't just throw that out there.
Caveat. Yeah.
I don't know what to say because I have my channel is primarily church people, so I'm just kidding. It's not my. That's a great segue to the fact that you've had is it Trussell or Trissel?
Trussell.
Nick? So you've had Duncan Trussell twice, right?
Yes, sir.
So if
Highlight
you
of
miss
my podcast career.
if you miss something in the first one and you miss it on the second, that's on you, right?
Oh, dude, I know.
Yeah.
And the first one I beat myself up over because that was my dream. Like literally for 8 years, it's the craziest. I said it on the podcast. Like I sometimes wonder if life is a computer simulation, and because things happen that I just never could have, in logical reality imagined happening. And having Duncan on my podcast was the best example of that because I dreamt about it for years. I used to like do the dishes in my old house and just like imagine a podcast with him, like the questions I would ask, how he would respond, because I listened to hundreds of hours of him before I ever met him in person. And when I actually did it, it was just beyond a dream come true. Like it felt surreal. And then I went back and watched the episode and I was just like, oh my God, Nick, you did terrible. This was your one chance, you're never going to get this again. And then I saw him at a comedy show a few months later and he brought it up. I didn't bring it up. He was like, hey man, you got to get back on your podcast, man. And I was like, yeah, dude, let's do it again. And the second time around, I feel like I really nailed it. What I wanted to get, in the first episode.
It leads me to this quote, and I think I'm butchering it, but I had to write it down from memory. And it says that you can never say the wrong words to the right person, and you can never say the right words to the wrong person. Mm-hmm. And it's more of an encouragement. And I hate to sound like weird and spacey, but it's like when you're in a moment, right? Where if you're at a good place conversationally speaking, and it's from the heart, you're always going to ask the right questions. Maybe it just wasn't the right time. Right, maybe it's for another chapter. Maybe you got to do episode 3 with Duncan Trussell. You just never know, right? I hear dishes or I hear chickens. What does that mean? Is that us?
Chickens
or chairs? Metal chairs clanging. That's gotta be Nick.
Oh, it's probably just my old bones.
It's not me, man.
Oh,
the old bones clanging together as I'm moving.
Oh, is it?
Yeah, I've had to see a physical therapist recently, and it's been bad. So you do have to be careful too. Like one thing that I was told is like a lot of times I'll have my arm stretched out using the mouse, and those of us who sit in front of a computer doing things, and that actually over time is causing me problems in my shoulder. So anyway, just a little PSA there for you guys. That's not really the noise that's happening. I don't know what that is, but go ahead, Tom. Somebody started saying something.
Well, I was going to say, in area of audio and noise, does anybody in this group? I just started doing this, and I've been singing, playing music since I was 7 or 8, and I've always did obviously practices and training, that kind of stuff. But when it came to audio recordings and podcasts, I just recently started doing exercises. I know, Tommy, you don't have to because you're already there. You're already at the pinnacle voice. Thank you. Does anybody practice like exercises? Just curious. I'm like vocal exercises or vocal work.
I did for like 2 years.
Okay.
I stopped probably a year ago, but I was doing it for about 2 years. I still can't sing.
I'll be honest, man. Before the show, every now and then, whenever I think about it, I'll say some tongue twisters. Do a few things.
Lemon lime liniment. Eloquent.
Was denied at Pink Loan. I just do the Ron Jeremy.
Don't do that.
He probably does some good tongue twisters too, though. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
What's the other guy? Ron from the same era.
Ron Swanson.
No, Ron Burgundy.
Burgundy.
They both use their tongues a lot. Some of them less twisted.
I didn't think we'd cover Ron Jeremy today.
Yeah.
Hey, listen, you brought me on the show. Sorry about that. It's coming.
That's why I had you guys sign a disclaimer, because there's a little fine print you didn't see. It said, I would not talk about Ron Jeremy or any other.
We had one rule, man.
What would have been funnier is if you're like that man, you like wouldn't say the name, like we wouldn't talk about that man.
Like Voldemort.
Yeah.
Do you guys talk about things like politics or religion or anything that comes up? And I'm not saying we need to get into that, but like, do you guys hit those kind of subjects when you need to?
Yeah, definitely. Yeah.
Is it because you think it's sensational and it might get more views, or is it because you just don't mind, you don't care if someone's gonna jump on your opinion about something? You know what I mean?
No, I think when those topics come up, dependent on what type of brand you have, what type of things that you're looking for, you talk about them within your comfort zone and what you're comfortable with talking about. If you don't care and just really want to say what you got to say what you got to say. It's your podcast, your show. Whoever tunes in, great. Whoever doesn't, great. Maybe they'll find it down the road. But yeah, I mean, whatever topics you want to bring up and talk about on the show, that's just what it is. Whatever comfort level you as the host have to talk about.
I want to expand. I think it depends on your ability to handle difficult conversations too. If you're skilled at doing that without getting angry or upset, then I say go for it.
Tact, right? We've lost tact. A lot of people just want to, you guys were talking about the sound of your own voice. It's been proven that most people like the sound of their own voice because it sounds different to us than anyone else. That's why when you listen to the recording, it sounds so weird. You're like, what happened to all the bass in my voice? Well, because your head is vibrating as you're talking. You're like, ugh. So people like it, and that's one thing that you got to be worried about is liking it too much, especially if you're trying to have a guest on. You know what I mean? Like, give them some space.
Let's mute Nick for a second. Where is he at? Where's this Nick?
Sorry.
No, it's all good. I heard a Ford F-150.
I think he was messing with the tape deck. Got to switch tape around.
I always say, dude, I'm a caveman, bro. Like, all I got is my phone, some, iPod headphones, and sitting in my truck. I'm the working man's podcaster.
Yeah. Who I enjoy when they get into political, what's the word? When they get into political detours on live conversations, I love Artie's. Artie's, when he has people jumping in, I love it because it's very entertaining. So I want to hear from Artie how he navigates from going nuclear. How do you stop people from going atomic when you're doing a live conversation?
How do I stop what?
Stop them from going like into a heated where they lose point of the discussion, start getting, how you can get political and people get into like beefs, right? So I want to hear how you navigate that.
I think I agree with pretty much everybody on something. So I think you can always kind of come back to these points of like where you agree, even if it's somewhat small. But I don't know. I've just never. I can get heated if I let myself. I can have a temper and all of that stuff. But I've always been able to talk to people who I disagree with and enjoy the conversation. Some people don't like the confrontation. Like if you disagree with somebody and you approach somebody for a conversation, there are some people who the fact that there's disagreement kind of makes them not want to partake in a conversation. But I've always enjoyed it. I think we have to have difficult conversations around contentious topics if we want to progress as people. If we want to find our common ground, we really have to dive into things and see where the actual differences lay, and not just like relying on, corporate media telling us where our differences are and stuff like that. I think we really have to dive into things, and I think anyone who wants to have those conversations should, because I think it's a mistake to wait for other people to have the conversations that you want to have.
I think we can't have this discussion without talking about media, right? Because growing up, I'm a kid of the 80s, so back then you could talk about politics all you wanted and like you wouldn't lose family, right? You wouldn't like get ostracized just because you like somebody, and actually nobody cared. Like in Hawaii is typically a blue state, right? They are a blue state politically speaking, but the people are not. It's very strange. But nobody cares. Like there's no such thing as like a red town or a blue town or here in Oregon where we are now. Uh, we are in a red town, hands down, and I love it because nobody cares. Like if I want to be on a liberal left side, they don't care. Just the only rule is I don't tell them what to do. Like I don't tell them, hey, put on your mask, or I don't tell them, And so I think with the political conversation, I think if I was to pick a side, and I don't pick sides, but if I was to pick a side that I would have the most fun on, I would say it'd be more on the conservative side. I think they have a lot more fun, especially when they make fun of people. I feel like when on a political spectrum, on the left side, when they make parodies or fun of other people, it seems like it hurts their feet. It hurts my feelings. It's like this is not funny, and I feel like we should be able to have fun in a political conversation. Not get so invested into it where, like, you know what, I'm done with you. I'm not going to hang out with you on Thanksgiving. Give me my turkey back. You suck. It's like, what? We're just talking politics.
And to that point, man, something that came up for me, Artie, I totally loved your points there. I thought that was well said, and gLO, I agree too. I think it's important to think about like the 4 agreements, from Don Miguel Ruiz. Always be impeccable with your word, speak with integrity, say what you mean, be honest, don't take anything personally. If somebody disagrees with you, that's not something that you have to take personally. Don't make assumptions about what they're saying, because I think that's where a lot of disagreement comes. And then just do your best, have a good time. It's that simple.
Artie's had some really amazing political guests that I watched a full episode, and I don't agree with a lot of the stuff or some of the stuff, but like if I don't agree with Artie, I think I've told you this, Artie. I told Artie, I don't like all your content. I don't know if you remember that. I don't really like all your content, but I enjoy and I highly respect how you do your content. And we should be okay with that, for people to say, you know what, I don't agree with you. I don't even like you, as a matter of fact. Like, I don't even like Waylon. But
I know.
Yeah. You know what I mean? We should be okay with that. And we're still buddies and still friends. We still hang out. We should be okay with that and not get so bent out of shape. And even in discussion, we should be okay with that,
I have a question around that, because I know how I approach this, but when you guys have a guest on that you disagree with, do you feel the need to make the point that you disagree with them, or do you think it's fine to just let them talk and let their opinion stand on its own without you interjecting with your points of disagreement?
That's a good one. I'll go last.
It depends on if you're live or not.
Mm-hmm.
Because you're going to see this, sort of wave of opinions coming, and that's what I do on Thursday. And it's like you'll see where I've had people come up that have a very, very unpopular opinion on something, and just lights up the comments, and some people will I've even had people say, well, that's it, I'm leaving. But those same people will come back because they may just haven't had enough on that topic. It's funny though, because you kind of have to address it if it's live, and also if there's other people on, if you have multiple opinions, if there's not just you and one other person. I like your other option though, because I might try to do that more. Just if it's a one-on-one conversation, just let it lie. But if it's the topic you're discussing, I mean, wouldn't you naturally just sort of give your opinion on it, or your sort of opposing view, if it is or not? But I liked what you said earlier though, Artie. You said about the finding a point of common ground. I'm sorry, Ari. So it's a little small on my screen. But the point of common ground, and then you can work from there. Because we can talk about our differences all day, but if you can bring up a little piece of like, oh well, here's where we agree, that usually helps to get people more opened up to talking about the differences too, in my opinion.
Well, sometimes I don't have a rebuttal or a response in my head for what's being said. A good example, I had Gary Cardone on a few months ago, and he mentioned a house is a liability, not an asset, and he was saying people should rent, and I didn't really punch the numbers in the conversation, but I've been thinking about that ever since, and I'm like, I just don't agree with him. but I didn't voice that in the conversation, and I don't really feel a need to. Maybe it'll come back up in a conversation in the future, but he was sharing his opinion. I let it stand, and that's fine. There's sometimes I get a little worried that it's like, I don't want guest opinions to represent mine. I don't want that to be mistaken. But at the same time, it's like if I'm interviewing somebody, it's like they can share their opinion, and for listeners that tune in regularly, they should be able to see where I diverge and stuff like that without me needing to make the point every single time in that instance too.
I think it's. I was gonna say it's a little bit about humility too, right? Like Gary Cardone, real estate is his world, right? He's been in it for decades, and if it's not your world, like in the moment, this is what a lot of people will fire back in comments and stuff like that, like. Hey, you didn't have the stats and the argument ready to go, and it's like, no, like I was in the moment. I'm learning something. I've found myself in similar situations where it's like somebody obviously is way more knowledgeable in a certain field. They spit a bunch of facts, and I'm like, I don't really agree with it, but I also like humbly, I'm not gonna just have an opinion to have an opinion, like what we're talking about, the Gen Z sort of left-leaning people just have an opinion about everything because it's been given to them. I want to speak thoughtfully and with some sort of a knowledge base. And so if you're live in that moment, or if you're even in a podcast recording it, you got nothing to say, it's cool, and go and educate yourself if you're really interested in it. Maybe have them on a second time and have it as a point of discussion or debate.
Yeah.
That is a response, though, too. People don't realize that is a response. Well, I don't necessarily have a full opinion on that. I've seen some things that maybe make me think otherwise, but I'll look into it. People are so afraid to have a response like that, like, of course I know that.
That's something some of my favorite podcasters, Rogan, Lex Friedman, do, is they dig, right? If they have that sense of like, I don't agree with you, it doesn't line up with most of my knowledge base, they ask the right questions, and they ask very simple questions. Lex is, I think, the king of this, because he'll go all the way to the fundamentals. Like if he has an economist on, he'll say, what is money? And obviously this is a very smart, educated dude. He has his own opinion, but he wants to hear their opinion, right? And so I'm going to go based on your responses. I'm going to dig into this, and I'll learn something, and then most of my audience will learn something too, because probably 90 to 99% don't understand that area of expertise as much as the guest does either. So that's another strategy, is like just keep digging into it live, and that's very useful for your audience too, because they're probably asking the same questions, right? So they get a response in real time.
There's a lot of things I don't agree with, just because I'm not I guess I'm not how should I put it? I'm not a well-traveled person, so I don't know a lot of things, which means I don't agree with everything because I don't know. So to answer Artie's question, like if someone says something that I don't agree with, for me, I got to tell myself to shut up, like literally just shut up and let them finish. My wife and I get into, my wife is looking at it right now. My wife says, because every time my wife and I go live, I always interrupt her. She's like, and I know when she's mad, because she's like, and she'll look at me like, and we get into arguments. She's like, you always interrupt me. I said, honey, that's so, and she's like, you need to let me finish what I need to say. I said, no, that's so selfish for you to make me wait until you're done talking so I can talk back. That makes no sense. But what I'm learning is that John Maxwell is great at this. And so we had some leadership courses, like for our leadership, we would teach them like, hey, if you want to be a good leader or a good conversationalist, let the other person speak. Turn off your rebuttal system. Do not come up with a response at all until they're done speaking. Because if you're working these questions or comments or rebuttals, you're going to be tempted to do like, but let me interrupt you for a second. And I think for me to learn is to allow them to finish. Now, it depends on the context too, right? Now, if they're giving an opinion on something that I may have said that may potentially change the course of my audience and how they view me as a person or my content or our company, I may feel the need to interject, if only it's something that's based upon something that I've said or done. Now, if it's their opinion on something else, for the most part, I'll let them finish. And I've never had that confrontational, that type of situation really. So, but yeah, to me, that's a funny way, me and my wife, how we handle the interruptions and whether we agree or dis. And sometimes I want to interrupt her because I feel like my opinion is very important. You know what I mean? It's like, it's very important. I need to tell you right now. Yeah.
And I was going to expand on that. Something that helped me a ton with podcasting was improv comedy. I took a couple years of classes a few years ago. And the art of improv, like you get out there first and you're like, hey, I'm a funny guy. I'm going to be the funny guy out there. And you're not present with what's going on. And you're just doing a terrible job and you're not funny. But the moment you are just present in the moment, paying attention to everything that the other person is doing, nonverbal and verbal communication, you're able to do effective improv comedy. And I feel like podcasting is the same exact thing. If you're not present, you're just missing so much data. There's a stream of data that's just coming at you, and you're missing all of it if you've prepared your response in advance.
Oh, where that
two things with improv. I did it in community college. The yes and is huge. You want to be a great podcaster, yes and. Even if you don't fully agree with someone, like yes and throw something sort of ridiculous out there that still is, not something you don't believe, but something that's aligned with you, and you can build something really cool off of that. And then also in improv, it's all about listening. That's what you're talking about, being present, right? Like instead of sitting there thinking about your response, just actually fully listen, download the person's point, and just sort of trust that in the moment that it's your turn to respond, you're going to be able to speak from the heart and say something. Because if 50% of your attention is on how you're going to respond to something, you're not present and you're missing 50% of what they're sharing.
You know who's a great interjector and infuses comedy, and Waylon would disagree with me, and that's fine because I disagree with Waylon too. And he's not the best podcaster ever. He's not even, I don't think he's in the top. Now, in terms of numbers, he may have numbers, but I highly respect what Theo Von does. He's not that good. Now, I'm not trying to be negative or critical, but when you weigh him in the balance of podcasters of all time, but he does something that really, it makes me laugh. And I didn't know that Theo Von he's a highly educated individual. Extremely highly educated, but he has a marketing persona that's opposite of that. And what he does is he'll interject a question or he'll say something that has nothing to do with what the person is talking about. Totally random. And you think it's random, but when you put the pieces together, like, oh my God, that was so genius. And it's stupid. Sometimes it's so stupid. But people that are in the craft, Joe Rogan's one of them, and other people, when they hear what he says, they start laughing because they know what he's doing, right? What it does. And so one of the things I'll say that I'm probably, it's a cheat code, is probably speaking of something I did before having a camera on my face. So I understand that if I don't tell a joke in the next 10 minutes, the people in the front pew are going to either walk out, go to the bathroom, they're going to leave service early, or they're going to go on the phone and check the football scores. So I think as podcasters, being able to find that balance, let them finish, or do I need to interject and pull them back in, right? And that includes our guests. So Theo Von is one of my guys that I enjoy. I enjoy picking apart the way he orchestrates his podcast.
I think his interview with Trump is the best interview I've seen with Trump. It was amazing to see a guy explaining to Trump what it's like to be on coke.
Oh yeah, that's right. I forgot about that. Yeah. And you know what? That wasn't one of his best podcasts ever. It was terrible in terms of time management because Trump said, "Oh, I gotta go now."
Yeah, like you could see the last 5 minutes. It's like, yeah, I gotta go.
But I agree with you. To the president about how to do coke.
Yeah.
Even though Trump probably knows all about that. He might.
And let me take a second to acknowledge. Thank you to all of Waylon's family and Pedro as well, and everybody that's with our guests, or actually we're all guests. Dr. Christina, good to see you. Of course, Tala, all the Facebook Ohana. We've got a Weight Coach 101 here. A Weight Coach 101. Thank you for joining us. There's Nobody. I don't know who Nobody is, but he's a nobody. And then Colin Smith, thank you for joining us.
What does he mean by Waylon is an in-time teacher? In-time teacher. Colin, let me know what you think in the comments. What's up, man?
In time.
I think something you said though about like not being fully attentive, like sometimes I'll be reading an article on my show, and if I'm paying attention to this comment and that comment and numbers and whatever things, other technical things happening, I can tell because I'm not able to read like efficiently. I'm going, shit, where was okay, like if I'm not fully just reading to read that article, so it can be a problem real time. Yeah. I like to call myself a situational humorist. The thing I don't like about Theo Vaughn is like he's never real. Like you can't tell when there's a real like you can pick out moments where you think it might be real. I like him though. I've been watching him recently. I like when he's on the Kill Tony. I've been watching a lot of Kill Tony. I tell you what, guys, it's been coming off in my show. I'm like I start getting snappy and trying to be like cruel funny to some people that come up and don't if they cross a certain line. I've been a little more like, I don't know, assertive, I guess. I had a guy come on my show. The screen was black in the background. I said, well, you're going to have light on before I come up. And then he comes up. He's got his shirt off, but he's in his bed with his blanket up over his chest. And anyway, it got bad. He ended up threatening to come find me, like with a bunch of other people on the screen. And yeah, it was so you got to be careful what influences you too. It wasn't anything I did really. I thought it was great, but Kill Tony was in me at that moment. He was like, he was telling me what to tell that guy. I'm just kidding, but it was funny.
Have you guys ever cried in a podcast? Never.
I've had tears on a podcast, but not mine. Oh wait, yeah, actually I did. A couple days ago, there was about 10 minutes where I have this dry eye thing. I have I have prescription eye drops. gLO.
I was there.
Thing, all right. Did you watch that?
Yes, I was there.
10 minutes. I was going. All right, guys. I'll be able to see in a minute.
I'll tell you why it happened, family.
Right now.
I'll tell you why it happened.
It was so bad.
I'm just kidding.
No, it wasn't the cannabis. There's plenty of that, and it doesn't happen like that. So I'll give you that much. But it was intense for good. And I just played it up. We had fun. It was probably a good clip. I haven't clipped it though. Go ahead.
Artie,
I've had people cry on my podcast. That's like a badge of honor for me. I can't even count how many. But yeah, I've had a handful of people get emotional while sharing a story.
What about you, Artie?
I don't think I've cried on a show. I think I cried preparing for an interview one time. I was getting ready to interview Josh Greenberg, Ellen Greenberg's father. Ellen was, I believe, murdered at one point in the early 2000, I think 2014 or something like that. And just reading about that case, I think I cried a little bit, but I think I kept it together during the interview, although I definitely got emotional during it.
I can tell you, I'm a tough guy. I'm a super tough guy, but when I just thinking about it now, man, wow. I can tell you the names. Papa Bear, Alaska, when we talked about child suicide and when he gave me the numbers, I rarely go over show notes with any guests. I just go live and hey, let's just do this. And when I get hit with it for the first time, and being as a father, I had to pause for a minute, and good thing my camera is not high resolution because I'll grab, I wear glasses so it hides the little drip, Cloudy with a Chance of Meatballs. If you've never seen that cartoon where Mr. T squeezes a tear back in his eye, yeah, I do that very well. And I think when a guest shares, like I did a podcast with my wife one time and she talked about her, and this is probably, honey, so I'm going to rehash this, but when she shared about her dealing with abuse from 3 years old, dealing with the sexual abuse, physical abuse from her dad, you can't turn that off. You can't, there's no way, I don't care who you are. If you're in a room with somebody, like I had to and then the best one I think is when my dad shared a story I never heard in my life. And I usually pin that on my top of my profile when my dad starts crying about having to tie buttons on his t-shirt. Man, I turn on the waterworks and I don't care if I got boogers dripping out of I don't care. Like I want the content to be real. Like I don't care if the audio sounds crappy, if it's real. But I said all that because Theo Vaughn cried in front of Tony Robbins. I'm not sure if you guys ever seen that one. and he didn't mean to. He was trying to squeeze the tears back. He was trying to squeeze the tears back in his eyes, and then Tony Robbins said, "No, it's good. Hey, that's why I'm here." But have you guys ever had a podcast where you just had to like push the pause button? Nobody.
Yeah. Yes. For a couple of reasons. One, getting emotional and, again, having to take a break and be able to kind of regather ourselves. But then also an episode where it was kind of not going in the direction that we thought it was going to go, two totally opposite directions, and, had to, push pause, regather, and kind of reevaluate the situation. Hey, moving forward. And again, having a guest, and I don't like to give guests like a full outline of questions that are going to come, because I want it to be organic and I want it to be natural, but at the same time, for the sake of the audience, the listenership, the viewership, sometimes you do have to push pause. You do have to pause things in order to get kind of back on track, so that way you don't lose a full episode.
That's a good segue to styles. I think going into styles, anybody can go first, but like if you were to categorize or to describe your style of podcast, are you more Walter Cronkite? Are you more Joe Rogan? Are you Rush Limbaugh? Are you more conversational? Do you have bullet points? I want to hear from, I don't know, who wants to go first? I want to hear your style. Just curious. Let's pick Nick since he's on the timetable. We'll have Nick share his style.
Yeah, dude. I think my style is probably the most loose, sort of starving artist, hippie. I sometimes write a couple of bullet points if it's someone that I'm just meeting for the first time. If it's someone I know, like Tommy, I don't. I just I let it sort of organically arise in the moment. Something we talked about on our podcast, Tommy. I'm a big believer in dialogos, which is an ancient Greek idea of the wisdom that can only be found in conversation. And I think the more that you try to orchestrate or lead that conversation, the less you're inviting the magic in. So as much as possible, laughing Stoic Buddha, the Buddha side of things, I just want to be sort of empty. And the one thing I do, which is more of a mindset sort of spiritual thing, is before the podcast starts, I set an intention, and I just sent the intention to, I want this, first and foremost, I want my guests to have an amazing experience, to walk away from this saying that was worth my time. I learned something cool about myself, or, about anything. And then I just sort of let it flow from there. But that's, this is not practical advice. It's just sort of what works for me, because I like to lean towards the chaos, because when you're sort of unorganized in chaos, those magical moments can happen. And that's really what I'm going for.
Before the next guy goes up, I'll share a quick story on Dr. Christina. I hope she's still in here. And let me just say how I am totally blessed when I get people that are willing to sit with me and just talk. And we were talking, I would say 20, maybe 5-10 minutes before we went live. And then we were talking another half an hour after we were done. We're in a green room after, and after it's all said and done, we were talking for about 4 hours total. I think our live time was 3.5. I was getting tired, I ain't gonna lie. But it's kind of like you're in my house, and I don't want to kick you out of my living room, right? I don't want to be that, that host. But Dr. Christina, for people like her who have all these credentials, they have all of this wealth of wisdom, and they're willing to give some to me. I think that's huge. It's so humbling and I think that to give people that freedom to just share whatever's on their heart, I think I agree with you, Nick. Having a free flowing, that's important to hear, that what we may not have gotten if we put a hamper on it, whether it's through bullet points or coaching them through an answer, So, okay, I'll shut up.
What's kind of cool about that too, real quick, gLO, is you might have an idea of somebody before the podcast, and I wanna see so much deeper into them during the podcast. And if I don't put the constraints around it, like if I ask sort of open-ended questions, big picture questions, it gets me a chance to get to know them better and deeper, right? And so that's another reason for the strategy is like, let's just open it up and just share, tell the stories you want to tell, like you said, share from the heart.
Now, I did have one guest who was in a very short timetable. I always lead in with, hey, I cleared my day for you. I don't have time constraints. And I also give them like safe words to pull out of the conversation if they have to. But I did have one guy. He's a Marine, former Special Forces. Well, they don't call themselves Special Forces, but he was Force Recon. And so he said, hey, I only got this much time. I said, okay. And I told him I typically don't do interview questions, but in your case, I'll do it. So I did have a list of questions, so I could honor his time. So I don't like doing that. I really hate doing that. But some people, for me, I'll make an exception because he's busy and he's got a lot of guys that depend on him, military. So in that case, I kind of compromise my own personal philosophy on podcasting. So who wants to go next?
I think it's a good, I can go, but before that, I want to say, I think it's good advice for guests to consider your host. And if you're not going to be able to do the full time for the podcast, let them know before, because it's a bit much to take in that information and adjust on the fly. Like if you're like, oh, you're here now and okay, I'm normally 2 hours, but you can only give me an hour. All right. That changes like what has to happen. For me, I use Obsidian to keep some notes, and for each guest, I start writing some stuff down. I don't write really any questions down unless there's like one or two that are really that I want to ask, but usually I just know those in my head. I'll just do some bullet point notes about like the guest and some things I might want to talk about, but I don't really have the questions formulated. I do try to keep it pretty free flowing, and it's kind of cool. Like sometimes you walk away from a conversation being like, I really wanted to touch on this stuff, but we didn't even get into that because it just went in a different direction, and that's cool. And other times it's just it's cool because it's an unexpected direction and it was just really interesting, and you learn a lot. But the first 10 episodes of the podcast I did have all of my questions pre-prepared. And once I got away from that, I started enjoying it a lot more because it's my style to be more off the cuff, really.
Mm-hmm. And I wanted to say, Artie, I resonate with that approach a lot. I try to make it like this combination of spontaneity and planness. I think what comes out in the interview is if you do research on the guest, I think that's really important, is spending time, a few hours, ideally going down the rabbit hole of their content and their work, because that'll naturally come out. They feel your intention, they feel the fact that you care. But if you don't really know anything about them, you get them on the podcast and you're like, hey, tell me what you do. Like it's going to be an awful podcast. That's how it works.
Yeah. I think that is, I think Greg Lunt did one of those videos where that's one of the worst. Hey, so tell me about yourself. What do you do? It's like, I agree. We should, if you're going to call yourself a podcaster or you do content creation, and honor your guests, right? Like actually research them, I'm not a liar, but I do have notes. I do have questions, but I don't stick to them. I use it so I know where I want to go there. And I did say this is non-scripted, obviously but I'm also a man of excellence. I like to have things at least have some point, even though I have a quote unquote free flowing. But yeah, research your guests, honor them by knowing not everything, but at least your point of view. That way, and it's not to impress them, because I'm not one of those guys that want to impress people, but honor them, right? Like honor your guests. I found a picture of Artie smiling super big, and I figured, I'm gonna take this picture and I'm gonna put it on the video.
Do you know Nardwar? He's like a YouTuber. You know him?
No, I don't.
So he interviews musicians. His name's Nardwar, and he like the reason he's famous is because he does insane research on this guy. Like I'm not saying you have to do Nardwar, but he'll in his interviews he'll be like, hey, when you were 17, this thing, tell me what this thing means, and that's his style. He just shocks the guest every single time, by the amount of research that he does. Like, you don't have to be like that, but I think the intention, it comes out in the interview.
Yeah, totally agree.
Yeah, if you're going to have somebody on for, in my case, I do 2-hour interviews. I should be able to do at least that much research on the person, spend that much time with their content, seeing what they're doing, if not twice that or more. Just, I want a good conversation. You're not going to, especially if you're doing an interview with somebody who goes on podcasts all the time. Do you want to ask the same questions that everybody asks? Like, you have to do research to be able to get into the ground that people don't get to quite often. If you're not doing that research, not listening to at least a few episodes of other podcasts that person did, then you're going to be asking those same questions. So it's like, you're really just, I mean, it's the same as everything else. And not that you have to be asking profound questions every time, but you know, sometimes you want to get at least a little bit of the content to be unique, stuff that the person maybe hasn't talked about too much, stuff like that.
And I also wanted to expand on that. Like, there's a course I actually took that was really valuable. I'm not getting paid by this person, but Danny Miranda, he's really big in the creator space, on Twitter especially. He has a course. It's called The Art of Interviewing. It's like $250, $300. I shelled out the money for it, and it was super valuable. It's just all about how to interview, how to research, how to communicate. I learned a lot from it.
There was a commercial I did for so when we opened a drug rehab in 2019, there was a company that came with cameras and all this fancy equipment, and they told us what they're going to shoot a commercial. And so this is actually a long commercial. It was for Adventist Health, which is a hospital. And I remember sitting there. They have this whole bunch of clipboards, and there's people with all these fancy equipment, and they told me, hey, this is going to be the questions, and very detailed. And I am not a pre-recorded guy. I need the pressure of going live to perform. And so I'm not even exaggerating. I think we did like 40 takes for me to say one sentence. One sentence. And for me, it was the pressure of getting it right versus just flowing. And I think with what Tom was saying, like, there are some guests that need that structure. Like, I had Dr. John Strukens. I'm going to talk about him publicly because he's a good friend of mine. He will not go on your podcast if you don't tell him what you're going to talk about. He's like, I don't do free flow. I need to know what the subject matter is, and I honor that. And here's a funny thing: once we got going, and he'll tell you he's an introvert, and he's a psychologist. He talks to people for a living, but he's an introvert, right? And after we got over that initial nervousness, we went on for 3.5 hours, and just like Dr. Christine, I couldn't get him to stop talking. It was an honor, and we joked about it later. Because I think for the first 10 minutes of our podcast, we were talking about airplanes, which had nothing to do with what we had him on the show for. We're talking about airplanes, like, and how to land airplanes. It's like we're talking about airplane apps, because that's how we got over that initial awkward moment, and then we got into the meat and potatoes of he actually gave me a PowerPoint, brought him and he sent me his interview question, which was pretty funny. He sent me his interview. Hey, this is what we're going to talk about. I said, okay, let's do it. So sometimes I work with that, and I do appreciate that. Yeah, I think Tommy is. I think that was his 1 hour mark. So the rule was we're going to troll whoever leaves early, but we'll wait for Nick.
Real quick, Lilo. The reason I dropped out for a minute was my phone overheated, and I got the temperature thing, and everything shut off. So I had to move into the shade. I blasted the AC to cool my phone down, and I jumped back in, dude. So.
We didn't even get to hot topics yet. What the heck?
That's what I'm waiting for, man.
Yeah.
My phone couldn't handle it. The heat.
It's when I said Ron Jeremy. That's what happened.
Yeah.
Want to acknowledge some ex people. Joshua, good to see you. And also, thank you again to Alyssa May, who says anxiety sucks. I agree.
Alisa Love, how are you today? So back to your question about style. It changes, and it depends on your level of I guess financial capability. So I think all of us would love to fly guests out and have them in our studio every day. Would be wonderful, but that's all a monetary thing that could be worked on and dreamed of. And I get local guests as many times as I possibly can, and stuff. So I think the style changes. And when I first did this, it was pre-recorded, to your point about pre-recording. And I thought, okay, we could do it this way. And I didn't really know anything about anything. And finally, when I did discover the live stream, it does play a factor in your energy levels and your I guess your entertainment level. There's several things, but it's kind of a weird new kind of hybrid thing, because you have people that are streamers, but that's not necessarily a podcast host. Then you have people who are audio only podcasts. Then you have live video podcasts. Then you have Kill Tony, which calls himself a podcast, just recording a show out in the real world. Like it's insane how so many things are considered the same thing. That's why I like a lot of different formats. That's why I made different shows to like give myself that creative outlet to do that different thing. Like, hey, this is what we're focusing on today. It's not what I do that other day, So
you guys ever heard of the terminology volume? I'm not a boxer. I've boxed before, but I think it's called volume. Boxers who are volume, they have volume punching. Is that what you call it? I'm butchering it.
Yeah, I think so. It's just guys that throw a lot of strikes and have a low connection percentage.
But they pummel, maybe not at full strength, but they can go the full 12 rounds or whatever rounds and just keep to where the opponent they finally get worn out and they finally get knocked out because the guy he's like a machine. And I liken Waylon as one of those guys who's a volume, because he does 5 shows a week with different topics. And he brought us something important, I think, is there's a blurred line, right? When we say podcast, and I know Waylon, didn't you give some resistance in this issue a year ago? We talked about because he said, I have a show. Like, I just talk about, it's not.
I don't like calling it a podcast.
Right.
But
that's
there is confusion in trying not doing that. And there's really nothing else that you can call it. I say I do a live video show, but there's that's too many syllables,
It's like Q-tip, right? People don't understand that Q-tip is not the actual, it's a cotton swab.
Right.
But we use the term podcast. It's a blank. So there is a blurred line. I would say about a year ago, someone called me out saying that you don't have a podcast. I'm like, what are you talking about? And so if you want to get real technical about it, an actual podcast legitimately is an RSS feed, right? So based on Apple or Spotify, that's a technical. Right. But I think the whole era of video, it merged those two, right? Where you don't necessarily have to have an RSS feed. And all my podcast friends, no, you gotta have an RSS feed. That's what a real podcast is. Like, okay, well, hold on, pump your brakes, brother. But there is a blurred line, right? I don't know if you guys agree or disagree. I think there is kind of a blurred line between a podcast, live stream, a show.
It's a huge umbrella now.
Yeah.
One term for so many things.
It's one of the hard parts about getting into, I believe, any field, really. Like, I had the same thing when I got into music production and podcasting. It's like you're trying to learn about stuff, but people are using the same words or different words for the same thing, and you're like, what is this? Am I doing it right? And it's like, eventually you get to a point where you're like, no, my setup is good. What I'm doing is fine. Like, I don't need to play by everyone else's rules. It doesn't matter how everyone else categorizes me. It doesn't mean if I'm calling myself something and people disagree with what I'm calling myself or whatever. It's like, there's ambiguity in a lot of stuff. And some people want to categorize things too neatly. I personally, I struggle with categorization because there's a lot of overlap with things. So I try not to worry too much about what other people are categorizing what I'm doing as.
You're going to see a lot more energy in this space going forward from the main, not just news, but the mainstream television networks, and they're going to be. I think there's a lot of benefit in not being too overly rehearsed or overly learned, I guess, or studying all the way how everyone should speak to each other. Like, come up with your own flavor, otherwise you're going to just look like everybody else. And you can't, like, look at some of these musicians that are like, was it Oliver Anthony? He's a self-taught musician, and I don't know if he's even really going to continue making it, but he got to that point of notoriety to such a level that without ever being just being self-taught musician. It's a similar thing to the people online. We're coming after so many people that have done this, and you'll see people get boosted real quick from some of these different networks. There are so many stories of some of these big podcasters taking big network money and saying whatever it is that they need to say, and so you got to decide what it is you're here to do before you get into it. Otherwise, you're just grabbing at money.
Blurred lines. Don Lemon, Tucker Carlson, to name a few. Bobby Lee, of all people. So there's a lot of these people, they kind of blur the line of podcasts. And part of it, and you talk about media, and let's talk about Elon Musk for a second. The fact that he opened the floodgates on people being able to speak or share what they want to say. I'm hoping that they actually create a robust video feature where people actually can find video content on X. That would be beautiful. But the idea that both Tucker Carlson and Don Lemon got fired within the same week, and now they have their own shows, right? I think that's beautiful. Like, apart from the machine of the mainstream media, and it gives us the ability. I agree. I think this year will be exciting to see the era, and not just podcast hosts, but podcast style content. I'm excited to see what's going to happen. And there's so many.
It means online content now, basically, right? You're just doing online content, but I don't like calling myself, content creator. Not to get on a tangent, but when you just want to be a podcast host now, no matter if it's video or audio, you now have to do all the other things as well. You can't just produce your show. You have to be a poster and throw up a picture every now and then. You got to do different things, long form content. You got to do different things that are in the content creator realm. Throw out a video to your subscribers every now and then, and you don't want to look like an idiot, so you say something fun to them, whatever that is. Like, that's more than what you originally like. I just want to talk to people and have a good conversation. Well, no, now you're a online influencer too. You got to do all that other stuff. It's annoying.
If you guys could, would you just do your show and let it be? Because that's how I am. I wouldn't be. I mean, I would post on social media a little bit, but it would be very infrequently. I would just be focused on the show and doing that. But yeah, you have to put yourself out there in social media and everything like that to get anyone to see your show in the first place.
Until you get to a certain level, and then you're, to bring up Joe Rogan again, just because he's such an obvious, like, can post, some crap once in a while for fun of it or whatever, and like, he doesn't really have to do any of that. And there's a lot of people, that are similar, where they're at a certain level where they really actually can't even have control of their own social media anymore, which is that's crazy to me. Like, where you have to, let someone else help you out with that part of it. Like, but it is a possibility of, growth. So, but at the low level, we're out here like handing out digital pamphlets. Here, come see the show, like, no, maybe.
I got a question to that question. Before I answer the question, I got a question. Is that right? I got a question to that question, and I'll answer that question. Okay, so here's my question: are you guys a one-man show, one-man band, or you guys have people helping you guys when you do your let's say podcast?
So me personally, I'll go first on this one. Me personally, you need to be the jack of all trades or the Jill of all trades and the master of them all, because you can outsource, you can get other people to do certain things. But say those people get sick, say your VAs no longer want to VA, and then it's all on you. Well, now you have to do all the things. You have to post. You have to edit your own content. You got to get the clips. You got to, and kind of to what Waylon was saying, do all the things. Be the complete producer of the short form and the long form and the uploading and the poster and handing out everything. So yeah, solo first, and then if monetary, you monetize your shows, you get some income coming in, and can outsource and pay for some of those VAs and assistants and other things that you can, don't have to do, like the editing portion, and you focus more time on guest, finding the guests, marketing to advertisers and sponsors. Then do that, but learn all the things first. Me, I'm a master of one, so I do it all.
Well, I'm a jack of all, master of none. So, but I will say, like Artie, I think he has 7,000 YouTube subscribers on YouTube, 7,000, close to 7,000 or something. Yeah. But I noticed that he has a lot of those shorts where they're what do you call that? Their portrait on top of each other.
Yeah, the vertical ones.
And I love that because it's bite sized, right? And I don't have to watch the whole thing. And he picks whatever parts he picks. For me, like, to answer that question, I think my journey in social media was really different than, I would say, the average, where I started on live video. I never did Facebook or Instagram. I actually just started doing live video because I was already comfortable with that. But then as time progressed, I had to figure out, like, okay, people don't care about me getting, body slam in an ocean with my phone in my hand. Like, after a while, the gimmick's gone. Like, okay, yes, Greg, you showed us beautiful ocean in Hawaii, and they go watch somebody else's stuff. And so I figured, you know what? There's always somebody producing something better than me. But once I figured out that there's a relationship connected to my content, and then once I understood that, then I said, I'm going to do other things now. So I have the Instagram. I have it all, and it's not that I am narcissistic, but there are people that connect with me as a person outside of podcasts. Some people follow me just because I show pictures of food. There are actually people that they like to see what I'm eating, and I share that for those people, and it's just my life. And I love doing the podcasting in this season of my life because I'm learning a lot. But I also see, I ain't gonna lie, and I don't want to give anybody false hope, but there is an area where you can monetize yourself before getting all the big deals, all the advertisers, whatever. You guys see me do it. It seems cheesy to some. I don't care. If I get paid to do it, I'll do it. So there's opportunity in podcasting. I would love, and one of the goals this year is to get a studio close to where we are now. And our property in Hawaii, we want to build a small, humble little studio, but make it nice and to where people can just come out. And hey, are you going to be in Hawaii next week? Okay, let's meet up. Or are you going to be in Oregon? Let's meet up and let's just have a conversation. And that's the dream, right? To be able to do that. So, but I ideally, Artie, I would love to be able just to do just this in this chapter of my life, and have all the other things for those people, and let them still be connected, right? So I don't spend a lot of time on the others. But I do it just for those, because those people probably, I have a lot of people that are not on X, and they will never ever come on X. Like, so I don't want to like exclude them. So I do deliver content in that respect. So
I'll answer your question. I have help with some things. So I have somebody who edits for me, and I have somebody that posts on like Instagram and posts those shorts on YouTube. But I will back up what Dro said, because I think you have to be able to do it all yourself. Even within the last 3 months, there's been a few times where I wasn't going to get an edit in place. My editor was sick, something like that. Something happens, or maybe I don't like something, and it's like the only way for me to fix it in time for release is to sit down there and do all the editing myself. So I'm very confident in my ability to edit, but I like having a second set of eyes on things too. I think that's really good. It's really good to have that. So, and it's nice to have somebody, maybe that even disagrees with you on stuff doing some of your editing. I've had that, and it works out really well. So yeah, I have some help, but I can do it all myself if I need to, and I will always be the one controlling my X account. And yeah, so yeah, I think it's good to have some help.
On my intro videos for my personal podcast, I always have my director, my producer, I have my art director, and I have my hair and makeup artist. But they're all my kids. So those are all my kids that I list in the credits. And I tell them, hey, when daddy gets the big dollars, don't worry, dad will pay you. But in the meantime, Zoe, can you do my hair before we go live? So I have help too. I'm not a one man, and my wife helps me a lot, especially in the content redirects. There's been times when I've said something live, and I've shared this publicly, but I had to actually go to the guy's house and just like, I said, bro, I'm so sorry. And we spent hours just breaking bread and just me humbly having to apologize to him. Like, I didn't mean to say this about, our relationship or how things happened. And so I've had those moments where if had I had more help, where to say, hey, let's stay on topic, or even the transitions, the lower thirds, the videos, all those things that make a podcast, or how I make my podcast. So eventually it's coming, right? We're all going to, the dream is to have a team where you can be that Alex Jones who does 8 hours straight up live when he's actually got like 50 people in the background doing all those things for him, But here's another question I want to ask you guys is, in the era of your audio quality, are you guys sticklers when it comes to, like, for me, I'm a stickler for, I can't handle water bottles. I can't handle paper rustling. I can't handle keys. That drives me crazy. If I hear keys after we're done, I'm probably not going to put this video up. Potentially, right? So that's just I'm not saying I won't, but that's my mindset. Are you guys real nitpicky on those things? Just curious.
I'd like to answer the last question, if you don't mind.
Yeah.
I just had a point about the fact that not everybody that you get to help. I've had a few people help me, and when you get someone to help you, they are not going to have the passion behind the project that you are going to have, or the vision, or any of it, really, even if they're good at what they do. And so to Artie's point, you have to be able to do everything, at least to the point where you know what you want out of that thing. You're like, I don't know how to edit. Can you do that for me? Well, then whatever they do, whatever they come up with is the only thing you don't even, and so that's all I would say. Like, yeah, I've had some help. I have someone that maybe come in to help me in person, and I have to figure out how to work them into, what they could do for me and stuff. So anyway, sorry. I guess I'll finish what you're saying. The audio, yeah, it's very important, but I have a lot of non-professional people on, because of the way the StreamYard allows you to send the link out. And there's certain shows I have that are designed to have the audience to be able to come up, but then they're on like an old phone, or they have their shirt off, or they have, like all sorts of different things. But then there's a lot of audio problems. And sometimes it's an audio problem that just comes out of nowhere, a gremlin. Like my microphone lately, every so often, it'll start having this like crackling sound. And the only thing that will fix it is if I play some music inside StreamYard in the background, but I'll just turn it down so much that no one could even hear it if I want to shut the music off. Like, there's so many stupid things, mid show, especially when you're live, that the audio can just be terrible. Or I'm muted. No one can hear me. All the comments light up. Can't hear you. Code 2. I have some moderators now in the chat. Code 2. I'm like, thanks, guys. Appreciate that.
You guys know Amber Champagne on Twitter, on X?
Yes.
Yeah.
I spent about 40 hours of just researching, doing video edits, graphics, make sure I was prepared. And we had an amazing, I felt it was a great conversation. I go back and watch the live replay. I forgot to turn my mic on. And it recorded off of my camera mic, which was terrible. But thank God I was recording on my mixer, so it actually recorded on my mic onto my mixer directly. It's just for the live stream audience, and nobody said anything. I'm like, oh, this is crazy. So I really feel bad in that respect for the live video part of it. But when I uploaded the audio on Spotify, it was amazing. It was great. Like, just because the audio quality was recorded. So that drives me crazy when I make errors like that in the area of sound quality. That drives me nuts. And Artie, I know Artie's and actually Pedro too. You guys are audio. What's the word? Exceptionalists, I think. Because Artie, you use some high tech. I know. I can't remember the name of it now. What's the interface that you were talking about earlier? You mentioned
Riverside.
well, Riverside, but also so I use a Tascam for mine.
Now Riverside.
Yeah, he uses Riverside, which is great. Riverside is good, especially for post production. Mm-hmm. Well, live too, right? They do live as well. Riverside.
You can, yeah, you can set it up so it's live streaming. I haven't done it yet, but I will one day. I worry about the quality. That's the only reason I haven't done live is I worry that the quality won't be there. Because you have to rely, you're not just relying on what you can do, what you can support as far as quality. You have to worry about what your guests can support. And I find guests where sometimes it's like they have trouble with the recording, a pre-record, so they won't be able to do a live. They would just be a blurry ball on a live recording.
Yeah, true. And I had one guest where she's a Serbian what do you call those people, news anchor, right? So she knows all about media, she knows about voice projection, and she's great, but her iPhone was an older iPhone, so it sounded so 1930s. So I had to go in post and try to bring all those things up, but I'm not a sound engineer, so I know what it should sound like, but I don't know how to do it on so I was trying to bring up all kinds of I was getting stressed out trying to get the mids, the highs, the whatever, you name it, and it just the best I could do was the best I could do. And there are some people that just, I agree, like they just don't know, and it's not their job to know. That's our job. We should know how to craft that sound and that audio. So
well, not just that, but like to be assertive during, especially if it's live or not, or even not live, but be assertive and say, hey, gLO, I think you got a little crackling going on in the background. Can we take care of that? Like, stop the show and do that, because you're going to feel better afterwards. You're not going to be like, oh, I know that's not too bad. Should I just leave it? Should I let them go? Like, it's just a little sound. Should I go? No, like you just stop things like, hey, can we fix that real quick? I can imagine when you're pre-recording a similar issue where it's like you don't want to stop the flow of their ideas, and that gets back to the letting them finish their speaking, because I think sometimes people just worry that they are going to forget their point that they had before they finish speaking. Oh, I got to tell you because it's going to be gone and squirreled away in any second. Like, so you got to be, or maybe take notes, like write something down if you're in the middle of talking and they're on a long, diatribe, and then they end up saying, I'll land my plane here at the end, right? That's where that starts. That's where that finishes up. But you're like, well, where did they say? What did they say before landing the plane? Shit. Excuse my French. Yeah, you're like, let me write down some notes. Like, that's a good idea. And spaces too, because people just go and go and go and
go.
Yeah. They like the sound of their own voice, and because they're not on video. When you're on video, there's something keeping you aware that you're taking up the space. I don't know, it's different than spaces. People just, they're on their phone, they're going about their day, just continuing talking, then like for 10 minutes. You ever had that, gLO? Someone just goes and
no, never ever.
Once or twice.
If everybody had a camera on Space, and for our listeners that don't know what Spaces is social audio. Is that the best way to describe it?
Social audio, baby.
And inherently, there's no camera. But I think if they all had cameras, I think the discussions would go a lot different. I think.
Most definitely.
Yeah.
Most definitely.
A lot less people would come up to talk. I can tell you that from experience.
And if there was no mute button, we would hear everybody going, "Oh my God, I know your credentials. You said it last time. Stop it already." We would hear everybody complaining about, "Come on, hurry up. I gotta go.
There's a mute button on StreamYard, but like we don't use it like we would on Spaces. I wish that was the same etiquette on StreamYard, like where we are all just muting in between. But that would be a little bit. I don't know. It just feels harder to do. I guess I don't know. More, you have to teach them how to do it. I don't know. I'm not sure why it's different. I'm not sure why you can't get people to do that. StreamYard's a little newer thing. I don't know.
That's a good segue to conversational etiquette, right? So Artie probably has the least troubles because it's understood that, hey, it's just us and there's nothing else that's going to distract our conversation. So there's a little bit less possibility of there being a hindrance to the conversation. Whereas doing a live with multiple guests, it's like, and the same thing with Spaces, like you've got to wait like a microsecond, a millisecond to make sure that it's okay to speak or to get a response. And it's different. Like I love doing organic in person. I rather do those. Yeah. And you reason, yeah.
No, not a lot of people do that on Spaces and social audio. That when you get into that talking about conversational etiquette, I think Spaces and social audio in general, from Clubhouse to Spaces to all the other platforms that are in that social audio mix, everybody's just talking over everybody. And as a host, I think a lot of people need to set some guidelines when they do have those spaces, when we do have these live streams and I have multiple guests. Hey, we're not going to talk over each other. We're going to let the other person finish speaking. If you have something to say, we have the private chat, and type something in there, give us get some attention, so that way we know where we have to go. But yeah, definitely have some etiquette when you have a guest on, and multiple guests like we're doing now. Again, let somebody finish, and then when you're done, go on mute and let everybody else speak.
Is there too much etiquette though? Like you can have it too dry from having like such a well-run, well-oiled machine. You're just everyone, unless you have something to break it up a little bit. That's why sometimes I try to be a little silly or goofy, or try to like get a little bit of a change in the step a little bit. Because I've been in some spaces that I really enjoy, but they're very professional and very dry, and it's like you gotta throw a wrench in the mix. Yeah, Lisa, though, that's why I'm saying like if you really get good with it, which I'm not there yet. I have my notebook here, but I've only taken a couple of notes. But you start to make a note like, okay, I want to make sure I come back to this point or whatever. But that's only if you really, really want to make your point,
When I'm hosting Spaces, I'll tell people, because a space might have 5 people, it might have 50 people. You don't know to start, but I'll tell people in the beginning. Usually, there's people come in after it starts, so I'll tell people at the beginning, like, hey, let's keep it open. Everyone can talk, like just come off mic and talk. But as soon as it gets to the point where we're like talking over each other at all, let's start raising hands, because I just don't even like that. If I go to a space and it doesn't matter how interesting the conversation is, if people are talking over each other, it's like I can't hear anything. I can't tell who's talking when. And I hate it when people are cutting off each other in like contentious conversations. So it's like, I'm out. It doesn't matter who it is, what the conversation is. I'm out. I'm not listening to that, because it'll actually give me a headache. So I try to set that example in my spaces. It's like, I want an open conversation, but if you're wanting to get in and not seeing where you can get in, raise your hand. And I've actually been on spaces where people just want an open, they just want it like just to come off mic and talk whenever. There's actually something to be said for letting people raise their hands when they want to talk, because some people have something to say. I can actually be like this at times, and I'm pretty assertive, but if I want to say something and there's 7-8 people in the room with speakers and like people are just going, I don't always feel comfortable just jumping in, because like with this, we at least have a visual cue right now. Like I can look at you guys and see if like you can get these signs that somebody's going to talk, but on a space, you don't have that. So you have no idea if you're going to start talking at the same time as somebody else. You do that 2 or 3 times and you're like, all right, I kind of just don't want to talk now. Like, I don't want to keep doing this. So it's nice for the person who wants to speak to be able to raise your hand and let people know that too.
Have you seen the hybrid style where it's a really, really big space? I won't name names. Certain people I've had on my show, and they'll have half the stage are like buddies, big names, big guys. Whoever comes on, oh, you got the gold thingy, you're coming up. Like that. Those people can all kind of like willy nilly. But then you have 3 or 4 or 5 people that all have their hands up for like an hour. Like they might get picked on if the other guys have some like a need to have somebody to say something. Like I've seen that where it's like, man, that's kind of sad. It's a good old boy system, kind of, but I get it. It's like your space, do your thing. If I try to get in there, try to get in there. But I've seen it. I've tried in a couple of those too. Yeah, it's funny. But to bring it back to the like being misunderstood sometimes is bad too. Like we've talked about, there were some topics I didn't hit during the show I wanted to get to. But one thing I meant to bring up then was like, you also have times where you misconstrue a joke or a something where you get like to your guest and that's their first time ever seeing your show. They don't know how you are about this or that. And I had Alex Finn on one time and I think it might have insulted him. I was too dry humored on my joke with him. But it's okay. It's like it happens. Like you had guests on that never come back. Hey, it is what it is.
So how much did you pay Alex Finn for him to be on your show?
I did not.
I'm just kidding. That's I remember watching that. I was like, wow.
No, I did subscribe to him. To
okay.
him for like a month.
Yeah.
So he got a few bucks. There you go, bud.
He's a very he's got a lot of tools in his toolbox. Alex
well, he's
Finn.
a dry humor type guy, so I said something to him. And you know what? And I've had the same problem. People with dry humor, it's sometimes hard when someone else comes at you with dry humor. Because I was like, well, do you think you'll ever add humor to your content? I said that to him, like knowing that he's always being a smart ass on a lot of things, but he definitely didn't catch that one. And I'm just like, got to keep moving. It was rough. It's like, yeah, do you think you'll ever add any humor? And he's like, well, maybe like, well, missed that joke altogether.
Who was anybody can jump in, but your most favorite or if your memorable guest that you can to date, or someone that you spoke with? Who is your most memorable? If you had to pick one,
I can't pick just one.
Yeah.
I've had some really incredible like farmers on and scientists and things that are in the ag world But I would say the most memorable, but this team, these 2 guys, they're younger guys, but they are huge farmers, like big in the ag world. Like they have their own podcast, and they never came back on after the first time. We had some differences of opinions, but it wasn't like a thing that happened. It was anyway. Won't get into it, but it was memorable because they just didn't want to discuss afterwards. It was weird.
I enjoyed it. I did enjoy that. The George, I don't know his last name, Artie. You did it in person with him. I enjoyed that one.
Yeah, George Gilder.
Gilder.
Yeah, he's cool. He actually insisted on it being in person. I wasn't set up for being in person. I was going to Freedom Fest, and he's like, I prefer in person. He's like, I can swing by Salt Lake on the way to Vegas. I'm like, okay. I had to spend like $1,500 to $2,000 to prepare for that because I didn't have a second microphone. I didn't have things set up. I had to buy a camera. So yeah, it was kind of stressful, but I was like, it makes sense for me to do it because eventually I want to do it in person anyway. So I'm not just throwing money away for a one-time interview, although I've only done one other in person since then. So. But I will say, to answer your question, I don't have one person. There are people who obviously, like if somebody is, I guess, more well-known, harder to get a hold of, and you land them, there's always some excitement there. But I'll say some of my favorite conversations are people that I'm connected to that, they didn't have that like fame or anything like that.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
there wasn't anything like that. It's just a good conversation with a good person. So I've had a lot of those.
I love doing organic better, just because of finances and travel. It's not feasible yet. But one of my he's my favorite guest, and not that he's better than everybody else. It's just that we're friends. And I've never met him organically, but we're friends in the area that he's in ministry. He's a pastor. He actually does missions in the Philippines and in Alaska. Um, but the reason why I enjoy him is because he was my first podcast guest of all. He was first, the very first one. And back then we didn't know what we were doing. We were like, because I've done quote unquote podcast style content from a cell phone. But when I made the decision, I'm going to have a camera with a microphone and headphones and be conscious of the quality of the content. It was him, and he had his own TV show. It was like a reality TV show. He's like a viral sensation on other apps, and when we hang out, we just talk. I mean, we just talk. We have things that we want to talk about. But he asked me questions, and I love when I have a guest that asks me questions. It's not that I want to talk about myself, but it shows me that they're comfortable. They're not waiting for the next question. They're not waiting to be, interviewed so they can tell me. They're comfortable to where, like, hey, so what did you do today, Greg? And I love that, So that guy, Papa Bear Alaska, is my favorite. As a matter of fact, we're going to do another one soon, and I like those conversations, where it's just, there's no pressure, it's like,
Yeah.
Now there is pressure. I will tell, hey, send me your links, send me your videos. I want to promote the heck out of whatever it is that you're doing right now. So I do tell them that, but once we start, it's like, there's no pressure. And he's my favorite by far. And he's not the best. I'm just saying he's my favorite to have conversations with,
It is cool when people ask questions because it gives you a feel for where their mindset is at. Like, because if somebody asks you a question, it's like, okay, this is what's on their mind. That's what they want to know. So it gives you some idea of like what's in their head rather than just a response to what your questions are. So I second that. I like it when people ask questions. Not like obviously not the whole time. We're the ones kind of guiding the conversation. But if somebody has some questions throughout and they want to know your perspective on things and know your answer to the question you're asking, maybe, I think that's cool.
Yeah. I'm not a Joe Rogan fanboy, but he is my metric in the area of how I like to deliver content. I don't agree with a lot of the ways that he speaks. I don't subscribe to them, but I like how he has the freedom to, because somebody came on one of his shows and said, so what do we talk about? He goes, you talk about whatever you want. And I'm like, that's so genius. And they end up talking about real stuff, right? But when he says, you talk about whatever you want. I would love to be able to go on a show and the host tells me, talk about whatever you want. You know how liberating that feels, right? Where you don't feel it. Please don't ask me the tough question. Like, and I'm sure there are shows where we should have that. I do believe we need to have shows where, hey, we're going to get to the bottom of this subject. We're going to talk about politics. I want to know, why did you say this or say? So I think we do need those type of, podcast interviews as well. So.
Oh, I don't like things about. There's one thing about Joe Rogan I don't like, and I'll be quick. Is that I've heard him flip flop on issues where it's like, just be real. Like he kind of like I feel like he leans towards whatever the guest's opinions are sometimes. I don't know if that's to like get them to. I don't know if that's for a reason. Maybe gets them more relaxed and able to say their opinions.
Yeah.
Like I've heard him on certain topics, and I won't go into them, but like, yeah, like wait, you said one way and you agreed with this guy who's completely an opposite opinion of this guy, and you totally agree with this guy too. Like, you gotta be careful about it. That's why I try to, like Elisa says, keeping it real. Like that means you keep it real to your own opinion without trying to try to agree with people but that can be a tactic though, to like get them to.
It could be, right? Because I mean, just check this out for a second. This is not a show about Joe Rogan, but the fact that he can get Elon Musk, the wealthiest man in the world, to sit in his studio for 5 hours
and smoke weed
and talk and smoke. and then do it again for 3 hours, and then do it again for 2 hours, and then to get the president of the United States to sit in his studio for 3 hours with no note cards.
They smoke weed too. Didn't you see that?
yeah, that would be funny. But I think that's for me, that's a good metric. I don't think that's not my. I'm not like idolizing the guy, but I do admire the fact that you can get someone to sit there. And I think the podcast era last year, I'm not saying it decided the election, but I'm pretty sure it helped. I really believe that it helped.
Well, it looked like a huge weakness for Kamala because everyone just assumed that she wasn't capable of that. She wasn't able to handle a 3-hour unguided, like unscripted conversation.
That's exactly that's the whole like path that led me to where I'm at, because years ago I was driving a delivery truck and I started listening to talk radio, because the music just drowns out after a time. No matter what you're listening to, it just gets old. So I started listening to talk radio, because before you could just have your phone plugged into everything and just have a podcast playing or whatever. And so you had to listen to the radio. And so that's when like Rush Limbaugh and others that were big. And it's like you start to listen to them, and I started to realize why, and I don't want to get too far down this road, but why a certain sort of type of people can do long form shows. The difference is whether or not you're full of shit. Sorry, I forgot. You didn't tell me if we could cuss here. I shouldn't.
No, you're fine. You're fine.
But my point is, like, it stands. Like, you can tell that's why I like long form conversations, because things can be unpacked, and you're not having like talking heads over like 5 seconds to say something, which is just ridiculous way to say anything. I can't believe that went on for so long. Like, imagine 3 of us, like gLO asked a question, all 3 of us just like that's how it is on regular TV. It's insane. Like,
corporate media is, hey, we have this complex thing we want you to explain to us. You got 30 seconds. Go ahead.
Yeah, like.
Wait, and by the way, this episode has been brought to you by Pfizer. And so, of course, you got to do ads and commercials. Yeah. So I think the long form, it gives us freedom to take a breath, right? And maybe something I wanted to say like 30 minutes ago, now I can talk about it. It's kind of like, right? And let me just tell you guys this. You guys are in my house right now. That's how I look at it. You're in my, maybe you're not in my kitchen, but you're in my living room, right? And so when I go to my family's house, we'll be there for 3, 4, 5 hours. First hour is spent hugging, kissing, whatever. Hey, I haven't seen you in a while. How's work? How's school? How's the business? Whatever, right? And then we eat. And then right at about the 1 hour mark, that's when we really start talking about, so how's your dad doing? Is he doing okay? Is he still in the hospital? That's when those real questions come out, where we get comfortable. And so I love being able to do that. Not with every, and obviously not every guest wants to talk about grandma or grandpa, right? They actually have a specific things they want to, whether they're promoting a book or their job or their business. So, yeah.
Bro, and by the way, work that in no matter what. yeah. Right away. Oh, and I gotta go. I'm sorry.
Let me read this comment by Josh real quick. He just says CNN lately has been doing a lot of argument sections. I don't want to hear about the people arguing about these who tell me what the news is. So I agree. Sorry, go ahead, Artie. I didn't mean to cut you off there.
Yeah, Nick has said this before, and I completely agree with it, that the magic tends to happen after the first hour. And it's for the same reason that you said, like, especially if it's somebody that you haven't talked to before, you're feeling each other out, you're getting familiar with each other. It's off-putting if you have somebody and you have a really contentious question or topic to dive into right away. It just doesn't, people aren't ready for that. So like you have to kind of ease into that stuff. And like after the first hour, that's when you really start to, I have a feel for this person. I know I can go in this direction. I can ask him these questions. Like it takes time to get there. So I get bummed whenever somebody tells me they have an hour or less to spend with me. I'm like, all right, it's not going to be as good, but all right.
Well, there's some good lessons. There's some good lessons to that. I'll share this. And I don't endorse it, but I use it as a comedy bit. It's that famous, I don't know who it was, but it was an African dude who interviewed a girl and he, as soon as the video intro ends, he goes, "Why are you gay?" And the girl's like, "Wait, what?" She goes, "Who says I'm gay?" He goes, "You are gay." And that's his first question of the whole interview. And
Jesse, can't remember his last name. Go ahead.
No. Jesse Lee Patterson does those types of, but this guy was actually like in Nigeria. It was so funny. Where the girl goes like, "Who says I'm gay?" He goes, "You are gay." Like, what a crazy way to start off an interview with just right out of the like a bat out of hell. Just start it off like that. That's one way to do those 1 hour interviews, Artie. Just come straight up.
Yeah. Get to the meat and potatoes right away.
Yep. Get one or two icebreakers out there and, hey, right to it. Let's go.
Why are you gay? What? But yeah, Jesse Lee Patterson does do that. One of the famous ones he does is he'll say the Great White Hope. He loves throwing that in there. He'll say the Great White Hope, and people, who's the Great White Hope? He goes, Trump. Trump's the great, and they're like, that is so genius of him to use that. Tala says, I've never been able to figure out how to access that chat while I'm in live restream or whatever he uses. Huh.
It's off to the right. You can click from private chat to comments and you'll be able to get there, Tala.
Speaking of Tala, she is also one of my favorite guests to have. She can't beat Papa Bear Alaska only because, me and Papa Bear, yeah. But anyway, yeah, Tala's great. She's I don't have to worry about her. The only thing I got to worry about her is, spreading disinformation and misinformation and lies and all those. Other than that, she's great.
I'd like to have her on someday. She still hasn't. She won't come on. She's a busy gal.
She's very busy.
I want to interview Tala too.
No, she's great. She speaks well too. She's got a public speaking background, and she actually enunciates well, so you don't have to ask her twice on what she said. So you should bring her on, Artie. I think she'd be great.
Yeah, I love Tala. She's awesome.
Yeah. Real quick, who's sorry, Jeff Bia? How do you say that? Bialeshki. Thank you for joining us. Appreciate you. Just as a reminder for anybody that's listening or watching on X, YouTube, Twitch, Kick, or Rumble, if you want to comment, put it in the little chat bubble, however it is, whatever. And if you follow your favorite podcaster, content creator, do me a favor, repost it on their channels as well. It helps them with their metrics. Unless they don't want you to, they can tell you right now if they don't want you to. But in the post, I'm going to add all of their links to where you can connect with them. You can subscribe to the podcast or to their content. I want to talk about Pedro, if you don't mind, Faded Theory. Would you mind sharing us about Faded Theory? I know you got coffee. I think that's genius, by the way. And if you guys don't mind, we'll talk about branding, maybe how you create more than just a conversation and podcast. Because I like what you do with your store, Pedro.
Yeah, No, Faded Theory is part of it's. I revamped Raw Elements apparel and turned it into Faded Theory, and that is the new merch line. Got hoodies, t-shirts, kind of going with the old school vintage rock star t-shirt kind of vibe, 80s, 90s, oversized tee, big images. This one I'm wearing coffee, social audio, repeat, because again, I do a lot of X Spaces. I'm over on some of the other platforms. Coffee wise, we got coffee on there, and that actually got thought about in one of the social audio spaces that I help run. Shout out to the Morning Social over on Chatter. We do that every morning, 6 a.m. to 8 a.m. Central Standard Time. Just open conversation, open format, talk about, hot topics, trending topics, and, why not make a coffee kind of associated with what we're already doing. So we got together and we ended up calling it the Morning Social Brew. So have, coffee that's on the website as well. So you can check that out. Got, thermoses, a couple candles for those that like candles. Again, we're in studios and whatnot. You can get you a little candle to, set the ambiance in your show. So yeah, Faded Theory, faded-theory.com.
So you sell candles too?
Sell candles too, man.
Oh,
Telling you, jack of all trades, master of none. Got to do it all.
well, I sell T-shirts too, but I don't sell coffee. I would love to sell coffee. So the reason why I'm asking that is the branding of what we do, right? And I was going to tell you, Artie, I didn't realize that your logo until I went to your website. There's a huge owl on your website. I just realized that in the background image.
Yeah.
I think that's great. And even your image in the background, what great marketing of what you do. Do you have anywhere where people can buy merch or, things that are connected to what you do?
So I have fractalzoo.net. That's where people can buy T-shirts and stuff like that. Actually, this is one of them. So
Oh,
I used AI to create these images that I really
can you
like.
pop that back up? I want to see it.
Yeah.
Nice.
Yeah, I love fractals. And I love just kind of, I love animals too. So I'm like, that's something I like on T-shirts. I love interesting images of animals and stuff like that. And I like just different things like that. So yeah, I have fractalzoo.net. Eventually I'll have some merchandise on thoughtfullymindless.com, but I might just do it on Fractalzoo. The T-shirts, I think I have a couple mugs and stuff like that, but it's mostly T-shirts because it takes forever to add products.
It does. I agree. And I, don't make a lot, but it's nice to have it, right? It's nice just to have it where you wake up tomorrow morning and like, oh, I just made some money and I didn't even push it or market it. And I think there are people that want to support us in what we're doing, right? Maybe not all of them want to be a subscriber and pay every month, but they'll support you once every 3 months and buy a T-shirt or a coffee cup or something. And I know, Waylon, you've got a lot of brand partnerships too, right? With obviously friendships and businesses too, right?
Like sponsorships.
Yeah, sponsorships.
Well, I got sponsorships, but also with affiliates, which are different.
Right.
And sponsorships really like it sounds good, but it really is whatever you negotiate with someone. Like it is what it is. It may not, like, I don't have anyone giving me a check, but some of my sponsors are subscribed, so technically that's money. But like they offer things and prizes and stuff to my subscribers, and it's a win-win-win. And it doesn't have to be someone taking, like, getting something over on someone else to come up. Like it's pretty even. It's pretty. Does that answer your question, sir?
Yeah, I'm just here's what I wanted to add to that. I'm excited for you guys because I think Artie and I had this conversation before, but there's a lot of companies that are looking for people that I guess you call them micro influencers, and they're willing to support you. I have a few, and I'm not going to promote myself, but in the beginning, that's one of my. So Waylon, what you shared is correct. You have affiliates, you have sponsorships, you also have. There's one that I did. I forget what it's like a campaign, right? So you do a campaign for 3 months, and they'll pay you like a commissions, and so I look forward to the day where I don't have to make phone calls or emails and say, hey, can you would you mind being a partner or whatever, where I just have one company and say, hey, we have these group of people, they would like for you to read ads for them. Would you do it? I would love to have that because that's what everybody on the big, the big guys have. But in the meantime, I'm enjoying, doing the legwork. It's fun. I don't make a lot of money, but to have that, just to say, hey, I made some money doing what I love doing, what I love doing anyway. So I'll throw out resources for anybody that wants it. Like there's a lot of, you can do it yourself. You can Google it, but there's some companies that will pay you commissions straight up. There's a company called Stream Elements. If you do live streaming, they'll pay you Now it's more for live stream and gaming, but they have other campaigns where you just promote and they'll pay like $300 or $600 for a certain time frame, and you just put in the time, and they'll pay you. And it's out there, you know. And I think it's rewarding when a company say, you know what, we'll support you, or we'll give you promo codes or discounts for your viewers if you just promote us, do ads. I call them ads, promotions, whatever. So, but let me read this real quick. Go ahead. Whoever's talking, sorry.
I was gonna say it's tough because you have to find out what your added value is, and if
True.
you don't have the big audience yet, to where you can guarantee sales, which that's I mean that's you got to have thousands of people, like several thousand viewers on your on whatever it is, to be expecting anyone to even think about going to buy something. And so, you know, there's clever ways to get around that by creating other incentives and other ways to add value to your sponsors, you know. So you can help them by making them intro or promo videos, stuff that they can use for their, like, maybe they're not good at that kind of stuff. You know, there's all sorts of things. The skills that we learn from doing this can be applied in other ways, and
Yeah.
you know, given that to a sponsor, say. But
funny story. I got two failure success stories. One is Insta360. So there's a time when Twitter used to have these brand partnerships with big companies, but back then Insta360 was they were just a startup basically, and so they had a deal where they would give content creators on Twitter. I think there was about 40 of us, and they're all still on his app, and they gave us all cameras, and all we had to do was go live, do video content, tag them in it, and then we will get commissions based upon, you know, referrals and all that. I didn't take it seriously back then. It's like, this is fun, it's cool, it's groundbreaking. You can do a 360 video live stream. People can turn around. Like, you could turn around with your phone and be where the broadcaster is in real time. I wish I had the foresight back then to push it harder. And they gave us all representatives from Insta360 to help us, you know, promote the product. And if you look at Insta360 today, they're huge. They're massive. And so, you know, if I could go back and say, hey, take it a little bit more seriously, actually do something with it, it would have been. And the other one I had, which is I didn't make any money off it, was Pedro, which is an electric bike company. And it's what you said, Waylon, like there's pressure. Like, I didn't sell one bike for them at all, but they gave me, you know, bikes to use to promotions. I would do, you know, photo, whatever, media productions with their products. The bikes were like $2,000. So it was hard for me to get, hey, like, no matter what I did, use my promo code, you get 10% off. It's still $2,000 they got to shell out to buy a bicycle. So I didn't sell any. And I was like, after about the third month, I told them, you know what, hey, thanks for giving me a shot. I didn't say I was a loser, but I was like, I didn't sell anything, so thank you. I didn't have to, but I just didn't feel right using their products and not generating income for them. So I agree that there is that part of it as well. But how crazy would it be, right? Oh, go ahead, sorry.
I was just saying, you have to decide whether you want to be reading ads in your show and doing all these extra promos and spending time on other people's commercials, or just building your subscriber base and doing things to promote yourself, like your own coffee company or whatever it is. And that's where I think the future is. It's not, you know, reading. That's why with my situation is I created a whole show just to kind of showcase all of these sponsors I've been gathering, and it sort of took off on its own. Like, I didn't expect it to do what it's doing, but if I had to read 20 ads for different sponsors on every show, it would get ridiculous. So I created a game show where we showcase the sponsors as a winning prize, and here's a little ad from them, and so make it fun, and so that I don't have to do those just like painstaking, you know, ads beginning of the episodes and stuff that you skip through. I skip through that on when I watch Joe Rogan or, you know, whatever,
Yeah.
Tony or something. I'm gonna skip over that. You know, it's not real added value.
I skipped through them, but I ain't gonna lie, I bought some stuff.
I mean, I've heard enough of them. Your hands
Yeah.
are busy. The YouTube is just playing. You're washing your dishes or something. You got to listen to the ad. I've heard enough of them, but I'm just saying, I guess I'm being harumph over here. But yeah, it's just it's one of those things people will skip unless they think you're using the product for real. Like if they think you're somebody that just talks about it throughout your show for no reason, like, man, I was really loving that bike ride the other day or whatever. Like you actually bringing it into your real life, you know.
Well, here's the question: did anybody buy a Manscaped 4.0 yet?
No.
No. Come on, man! Those ads are great. You guys don't you don't like those ads? I love them.
And I hear the affiliate commission on those. It's pretty good too.
I applied. I said, hey, but I don't have enough followers. But I applied. Yeah. But I will say I love doing ads because I have sales is my background. I love it. But I'm not going to read ads for cheerleader outfits. Obviously, one of my dream companies I would love to align with is Snake River Farms. They have amazing steaks. Oh my gosh!
I thought you said Snake River.
Snake. They're in Idaho, I think. Okay. And they have this Wagyu. So they have A5 Wagyu from Japan, right? They bred the cow with an American Angus. So if you know, American Angus is typically beefy, not fatty, typically. And A5 Wagyu is like whatever 70% fat minimum. So when you have the two breed together, oh my gosh, the steak is like raw. And so, anyways, yeah, I would love to have them as a partner. Where I say, hey, use my promo code, you get 10% off your Snake River Farms A5 Wagyu. It'll melt in your mouth, not your whatever. So,
have you tried reaching out?
Oh yeah, I've emailed over 100 people in the past year and a half. I think 3 of them actually said, okay, we'll give you a shot. But that's part of the game, right? Is like if you agree with a certain brand or product, and if it'll enhance you in what you're doing or give value to your listeners, I say give it a shot.
Another trick you can do, especially if it's something where it's an affiliate position where you don't think that your audience is going to purchase. You can use your discount, purchase the item, and use it as a giveaway or sell it at full price, and literally help your sponsor by buying from them. And then but you can't. I mean, a $2,000 bike would be tough to do, but if you're buying meat and then re-gifting that to people, even at a smaller discount or whatever it is. But you know what I mean? Like there's ways to. I thought about doing that with one of my sponsors, but ultimately I had more people that were smaller businesses doing similar things versus this. It wasn't a sponsor, but an affiliate position, which was only like a 5% discount on their website. But I looked around and I had other sponsors doing very similar things, some of the same products for, a better, like a 10% off instead, because they're smaller business. They're trying to grow faster, like there's different ways to angle that, I guess. I don't know.
I would tell people get ready for it. If you do this for a living or if you do it because you enjoy it, I would say get ready for it because, for example, what Elon did last 2 years is to open up the floodgates when it comes to media sourcing, where we're the media. I know that more companies are going to have their eyes set on people that are delivering content. And I'm not saying do cheesy stuff, of course, but and I'm not promoting my own branding or whatever, but like Archon Mounts has been with me since day one. They believed in me. They flew me and they opened up their studio in LA for us to come in, and we spent time with the owners, and they believed, even though back then I only had like 500 followers or 1,000, whatever it was. And they not just me, but I think in my first year with them, they donated about $40,000 worth of equipment. Wow. in giveaways, and of course they write it off. They write it off as business expense. But how crazy would it be? You find a company, or you develop a company from ground zero. They stick with you, and then you get to a point where there's a lot of revenue coming in, and you can say, you know what, these guys were with me from day one, or they believed in me, right? What a powerful. I think Joe Rogan has a story like that. Or Theo Vaughn, where they met the owner of Blue. You guys ever heard of Blue Cube, the ice bath?
I think I've heard him talking about it. Blue Chew? Oh, that's different.
That's different. Yeah, that's you do the Blue Chew before you get into the Blue Cube. So the Blue Cube is It's basically it's like an ice bath, but it's like a ice bath jacuzzi, if that makes any sense.
Mm.
And so what it does is it replicates a river, like an ice cold river. So there's flowing water. It keeps hitting it. And what it does, it recycles whatever temperature you want it. I actually got into one. So they make them here in Oregon. And but the story that I heard was, so Theo Von used to read, like how I do my cheesy ads. Theo Von used to do these ads for this restaurant, Italian restaurant. And the guys, they kind of believed in each other, I guess. So long story short, after all these years, not knowing that through that relationship and where Theo Von is today, that guy formed a multi-million-dollar company. And way back in the day, Theo Von was reading these cheesy ads on his podcast. Hey, if you guys like Italian food, go to Mario's Italian restaurant, And now they're, all these years later, and of course Joe Rogan uses, and these ice baths, they're called Blue Cubes. They start at $20,000 for one. And I'm like, what a great story! What a great origin story when it comes to marketing, branding, and all those things. Yeah. So here's a question. I know we're gonna our plane is at about 30% fuel before we landed, but what would be an ideal guest for you guys moving forward? Is there someone you guys would like to have as a guest?
All of the guests. I want them all. I don't know.
Yeah, that's a good question. Definitely a good question. I know with the new podcast that I am starting based around fatherhood, some amazing dads that will be on here. Hopefully, looking to get maybe like an Eminem, again, being that I do the Dro on the air and DJ stuff, maybe like an Eminem or 50 Cent or, somebody along those lines, somebody that has kids also talk about the music. That might be, super cool.
Talking dream guests here, huh?
I want Tiffany Gomez. That's who I want. That's I have her on my list. You guys know who she is?
I don't know who she is. What kind of list are we talking about, though?
Well, just for me, interesting. Like, so she's the airplane girl. You guys remember the airplane girl where she says, "Those," like she's smart.
Yeah.
They're not real. So I want to have a conversation with her.
Huh.
And she's making bank now because of that moment, right? The other one I would love to have a conversation with is Wesley Huff. I find him interesting. He's intriguing. With the recent controversy with him and Billy Carson. If you guys don't know that, I'll say it again. For people that don't, try to look up Billy Carson and Wesley Huff. Such a great conversation, but also it turned into a sad moment for all those involved. But it was a great conversation, I thought. But I would love for Wesley Huff to be a guest. I would just listen the entire time, for sure.
Man, that's a tough one. There are places I'd like to be a guest. I've actually thought recently about going down to try and get on Kill Tony, because you know what, it kind of made me mad. But I was like, you know what, there's people getting up there that have zero interest in being a comedian, but they're like, yeah, follow me on Instagram at blah 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 blah. And like, and if they can make a different impact in the interview, and like, I could be funny for a minute, maybe it wouldn't even maybe bomb, and that's fine. But then have a great interview, and then be like, oh yeah, follow me here, and it's like, no, like that's it's a thought. It's like, you could get up there and maybe be pretty good, like I've been on the comedic stage a couple times, and I thought about that, but to get somebody on my show that I really look up to, like, I don't know, I can't even, I don't know. And actually, I run against the grain on some things. Like, for instance, I am a disabled veteran. I use cannabis medicinally, and I also use it to point out to veterans and other people that may be in a similar situation that there are other ways. There's something else besides the previously prescribed alcoholism and opioids and maybe suicide. And so I do things that maybe are going to make it really, really tough for me to get to a guest that I might really love to have on, because they might disagree with that or whatever, like for instance, Tim Cast. I like Tim Pool. He's a good guy. I don't always agree with him, but he's never gonna see eye to eye with me on my opinions. And that's fine. But there's barriers that like Joe Rogan, he can have almost anyone on, but yet they know he smokes cannabis. He uses cannabis. He's one of the healthiest people I know, but he's past a certain point of like notoriety and things like that. So it's like I'm working uphill with some of these topics that are just never, maybe never going to happen, but also possibly just before the wave, before the popularity. Like I'm all, me, gLO, we talk about the downsides. We talk about negativity. There's downsides to coffee, and a lot of influencers sell coffee, and caffeine can be a real problem for certain, like several ways and several reasons. And so there's a lot of hypocrites out there that kind of have that opinion. It's like, well, if your follower count is this or lower and you're in the cannabis, then definitely not. But if you're Joe Rogan, then no problem. Come on through. You know what I mean? So it is kind of it's a tough road, but you know what? I'm not going to stop because there are reasons behind it. And you got to be out here for a reason. You can't just be out here for more views and try to follow the trends and things like that. It's got to be something, a core reason what you're doing,
Waylon, I'll have you on sometime. We'll talk about cannabis. I'd love it.
That would be awesome, man. I would love it. Yeah. What do you primarily do? Video?
Yeah. Video, audio. Yeah. I mean, the RSS feed goes out in audio to like Apple and stuff like that. But as far as guests, I've been writing a couple names down: Robert Greene, Eric Weinstein, Luke Rudkowski. Those are probably three that I'd really like. And then, one of the things that I want to do is I want to start doing some in-person stuff where I'm going on site with people. As I mentioned earlier, I love animals. I've always loved animals. I thought about being a zoologist at one point, and I love bears. So Doug Seuss, who's here in Utah, he lives in Heber City. He's pretty old now, but I would love to interview him and his wife and meet his bears.
You could probably interview RFK too about him. What did he do? Eat a bear or fight a bear or put a bear in a trunk? I forgot what the story was exactly, but it's something to do with a bear. RFK.
Eric Weinstein would be
intense.
I like him, and I don't like him.
Imagine like getting into a conversation about anything scientific with him, and you're just like, huh? Or Lex Friedman, like you have him calling, like, hold on, back up a minute. Let's try that again.
Eric Weinstein is one of the only. I've told people this. There's barely anyone who I'm like, I'd be a little intimidated in interviewing this person. Eric Weinstein is probably one of the only people who I'd initially feel a little intimidated by, because it's like, I mean, the dude is phenomenally smart.
You know how I approach people, and I get a lot of them where I would be naturally intimidated because I'm not a highly credentialed person on paper. But I approach those people in a weird way where I'll just ask them questions that have nothing to do with what their expertise is in. I enjoy that, and I think sometimes some of my guests, they've been on several shows where they've done that, where they've just kept talking about what they're good at. So when I ask them a question like, "So what's your favorite Coke, flavor of Coke?" They're like, "What? What?" So I don't know about what is it? Weinstein? How do you say Weinstein?
I think it's Weinstein. I've heard Brett Weinstein.
Yeah,
because I think Weinstein. That's how I would pronounce it, looking at it. But yeah, I've heard them say Weinstein.
Now he's the guy that Rogan brought on to talk to Terrence Howard. That's the same guy, right?
I'm not sure.
He's been on a few times. But,
yeah, I think. Well, what is Weinstein's
He
official
has a
background?
podcast. His podcast is called The Dark Horse. I believe it's the Dark Horse podcast.
Oh, okay.
If I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, that's Brett's. Brett's is Dark Horse. Eric's is
Oh, okay. My bad. Yeah.
Portal, or I'm
Brothers.
forgetting the name of it, but
Which one of them has a wife that does the show with them?
that's
Can't
Brett.
remember. Okay.
That's Brett. He's an
She's intense,
evolutionary
too.
biologist.
She's so smart too, man. You hear those two together and just
Yeah.
like, oh man, what can we talk about? Pizza? Okay, let's go.
I met him very briefly at Freedom Fest. I ran into Brett, talked to him for a quick moment, but it was in line. I was like walking. It was kind of funny because like it was in Las Vegas, 120 degrees. I'm walking. I'm wearing a jacket too, and I'm sweating my ass off by the time I get in there. And then I'm in line and I run into Brett Weinstein. I'm like, I have to meet him because I'm right here next to him, but I'm like I'm like sweating through my jacket and everything. It's like not the ideal time to meet somebody, but it was still really cool.
Well,
That's funny.
I'm sure he'll remember you now. Oh yeah, you're the sweaty guy. I remember.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was
Yeah.
drenched in sweat.
Yeah.
Yeah, I
Look like
remember.
the pilot on the airplane. The movie Airplane is just like rolling down. It's like, ah.
You know who one of my and this is more of a dream list, but I wrote it down. Emma Stone. I would love to be able. I mean, I think people like her. I don't know what it is that the way she does interviews, I love it. But I've never seen her do a long form, so I don't know. I think that'd be great. And before people say, "Oh, go ahead, Artie."
Oh, I wasn't going to say anything.
Oh, I think before people say, "Oh, that's not possible," well, you never know. Some of the conversations that you've had already, I think people are like, "How in the world?" Like, I think with this whole opening the doors of social media with Twitter, now X, never before in the history of man have we been able to have a conversation with somebody of quote unquote celebrity status.
Yeah.
Yeah, and they respond back, you know. But I think Emma Stone would be one of my favorite. I think she would be fun to have as a guest.
I think Tucker Carlson would be a fun guest,
You think so?
but he probably wouldn't do a remote. You know, be like, wait till I get to the next house, and then maybe I'll end up. But you know who else would be funny? It would be Pauly Shore.
Oh,
Like, Pauly, you're back. You're in the spotlight again. How are you?
he got feisty in the past 5 years or so. Yeah,
It's like he kind of woke up out of a
Mhm.
coma, and he's like, and that can happen even like on a broader scale for anybody that's creating content and trying to become a different person in a lot of ways, but also growing something. You go through these ups and downs of the growth, and when you're in a low, sometimes it can be enough to be like, oh, I'm done. You know, this is over. And the same thing happens with big celebrities like that. Like Pauly Shore grew up in the celebrityism. Like he was almost like didn't have any other choice the way he grew up. But he kind of went away for a while. Probably thought he was, probably thought no one cared about him. Probably thought he was irrelevant or whatever it is. But you make yourself relevant. You don't just get to be relevant. Like it's a constant battle. Like you're not just from being you, unless you're, I don't know, Paris Hilton, or who is the other one? The Kardashians. Like it's like to just get to be like it's me. I'm here. I'm it. Like,
I think Jesse Ventura would be a great guest for you, Waylon.
I'm just asking questions.
Because he's very passionate about a lot of the things you talk about.
Oh no, that's a different Jesse. My bad.
Yeah, Well, the former governor of Minnesota.
Yeah, that's the same. Okay, I was
Yeah.
thinking Jesse Lee Peterson. He's fun too. Man, he's
He's funny.
keep coming back to. Jordan Peterson would be awesome to interview too.
Yeah, he wouldn't shut up though.
Yeah, I mean,
I'm just
I don't
kidding.
know.
He's good. He's good. I ain't gonna lie. But sometimes, so okay, let's pick one. So, but if you had Jordan Peterson, Ben Shapiro, or who did we just mentioned somebody else before that? Who was that? Or Jesse Lee Patterson. I don't know why I threw him in. Okay, rewind. Jordan Peterson or Ben Shapiro. Who would you take as a guest?
probably Peterson. He's a lot more thoughtful. Like he might, you think he doesn't shut up, but I've actually see him a lot more often just kind of sit back and like,
Right.
you know,
True.
like ponder what he's being asked. Ben Shapiro would be like, I'd be like trying to speed up and like, I don't know if I can keep up with him. You know, it's like he just keeps going. I can't, you know, I don't know. He doesn't seem very, he doesn't have to take very long to think about something. He's just like, boom, you know.
Yeah.
He's right there.
I go Peterson too. Yeah.
More
You know what
thoughtful.
else I'd love to talk to is it doesn't have to be him, but Richard Wolff. He's a professor. He's a socialist, and I'm very much against socialism. I think it's a flawed ideology. But I want to talk to somebody who can really, really lay the case for socialism and be able to ask questions and see how it goes. So I think it'd be
That
cool.
would be cool. Yeah. I always welcome opposing views like that because it gives you perspective. Like
Yeah.
you can't live multiple lives, but you can live multiple lives in a way vicariously through other people's stories and other people's opinions and thoughts.
Yeah.
I would take that comment back. I was just thinking about it. That's probably not a nice thing to say. I didn't. Jordan Peterson is great. I think there are some people when you have a conversation with them in a room. I don't know if I could handle one with Jordan Peterson or Ben Shapiro, unless I was like attending an event where they were speaking. But if they're in my house, I'm like, man, can I say something, please? but
Yeah.
I will say, if you do have, was that his name? Jesse Ventura. That's what I meant to say. That's
Yeah.
it.
I think
Yeah.
you said it right. I just there's too many Jessies and I was getting them confused. So
I agree with you, Artie, on the whole idea of socialism. Like, I know we're not getting political. Well, I don't care. We can get political, but socialism is just straight up evil. That's my take on it. It's if you get somebody that understands it. As a matter of fact, one of my books by Robert Kiyosaki, he wrote a book called The Capitalist Manifesto. Great book. If you haven't read it, I would love to have Robert Kiyosaki. And the other one I was just thinking is Victor Marx. You guys ever heard of Victor Marx? He there's a marriage course that my wife and I take. We need to finish it. But he got famous by, there's this video that's viral on YouTube or wherever, where there's a guy holding a gun and he disarms the guy in like, I don't even know what the time is, but it's a world record. He disarms the guy and like within like half a second, takes the gun, disarmed everything. That's how he kind of got famous on social media. But he's a former special forces, but now he does. And his backstory is that he was abused as a kid. And they asked him, how did you come up with the idea to disarm someone so fast? How are you able to do that? And it's legit. Like, he can disarm people. He said, my dad used to take a gun. He used to hit me in the head with it when I was a kid. And basically threatened to take his son's life. And the dad told him, you know, I could kill you and nobody would ever know. And I would take this gun and I'll put your hand in the trigger, make like you committed suicide. And he says, from that moment as a kid, I knew, I made a decision. I don't ever want to have to deal with that again. And when I saw that video and I saw how he's able to disarm somebody so fast, and then now him and his wife do marriage courses, and every year they go to at-risk war-torn countries and they do aid. Like they go into areas that they're not supposed to help people with food, resources. And they pay mercenaries, armed envoys, and they go in there and they deliver. So I would love to have him, Victor Marx, that's his name. I would love to have him as a guest. Just a great individual. I love having those type of discussions, you know, getting the backstory on how did you, if you watch the video, it's crazy how he can just take the gun out of it. I'll share it on social media. You guys can watch it, but
I think I just want people that have a passion, right? You want somebody that has something they're passionate about, whether that's their career or their hobby on the side. Like, you know how Rogan will get into like a side thing, or like talking to Mark Zuckerberg about hunting, things that are just like you said, not their normal, but it's something they're passionate about.
Right.
And that's what I like to see, is like that transfer as well, is to see their passion about it, whatever it is,
I think that's why Jordan Peterson can maybe seem like he talks a lot, because I think he's passionate about exploring ideas so much
Mhm.
that he can find an angle to discuss just about anything, even if it's something that he's not really. It doesn't have to be a subject that he's well versed on. He can find some angle that relates to where his knowledge actually lays. So I think that's why he seems more like that. He could just talk a lot. I think he could just dive into a lot of things and analyze things.
I'm the same way though. Like I can.
Did he mute himself, or did I?
Here.
Well, while he's changing the batteries to his mic, hey Josh, thank you for being here. And Josh says, I gotta take off. Hope to do this again. I was joking about the batteries. I didn't know you had to have real batteries.
They're not. It's two different microphones. I could take the other one out now.
Oh, okay.
Out of my beard and plug it in.
You put your mic in your beard?
It's in your beard?
That's awesome.
You know what? That's
And it's a recent development, but I like it.
No, I like it. It's like Peter Griffin when he had the bird's nest in his beard. You guys ever seen that?
Well, I always imagine like a fist coming out from the beard. Like there was some kind of show like that. The guys had this manly beard, right? But there would be a fist, a third fist. They could punch people with it because it's so manly,
That's
sorry,
I derailed
us.
No,
What was I even talking about? I don't know.
You were sharing from your heart.
After I mentioned Peterson can talk. You were saying you're the same way.
Yes, because I'm curious about almost any topic, but I consider myself intellectual, which doesn't mean that I'm smart. It just means that I enjoy the act of thinking and the act of kind of getting down to a topic and unpacking it and saying, oh, that's interesting. You think that way. This is the way that I think about it. And, just that whole thing. And people will accuse me of like being a know-it-all. It's like, no, it's the fact that I'm interested in just almost anything, kind of like Rogan does, like that. He has his shtick where he's like, I'm just a Neanderthal. That's just like a curious guy. Well, that's, I kind of, my main show kind of runs off of that premise. Like, I'm just a normal person. I'm like the everyman, if quote unquote. And let's see what it takes for the average person to try to do what I'm doing. So I'm not I'm not like where you would go and watch an expert farmer lay it all out with like, scientific detail. It's more about the journey of the everyday person changing their life to go to that type of lifestyle, never growing anything before, there's plenty of people out there that have never ever tried to grow a single thing, and so I just kind of that angle, that same kind of I don't know if humility or sort of like put myself in the the general chair, and then like, here, let's bring you along with me. And so try to keep it humble while also, it's so hard to do both, humble while promoting yourself, not looking like you're too full of it or too, fake it till you make it. Like all those things are real, it's a real thing.
I got a guess for you. If you ever heard of Will and Jenny, I think it's Will and Jenny Harris. You ever heard of them?
Mm-mm.
They have a regenerative farm. It's pretty big. It's a huge one. And he did a podcast, I think it was Joe Rogan for sure, obviously. But he talked about the truth of our farming industry, the corporate farming versus what they do, and also where our beef really comes from. and I'm going to throw a fake number. You have to research it, but I would say about 85 to 90% of our beef that we buy are not even from the United States, even if it says USDA. Because he said when you bring in the cow from whatever country it comes from, as long as you bring it in whole and you process it in the United States, they can technically call it U.S. beef.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
that's some of the discussions that I think would be great. Like, and of course they do other types of farming as well, but I think that would be a good guest. If I would reach out to him, Will or Jenny. I think Jenny does most of the talking, but Will is I think that's her dad or something.
Oh, I'm always down for something like that. I had another guy named John on. I can't remember his last name, but he came on to represent another company that sold a product called Calga, which was fossilized algae. But he came on as the representative, not being from the company, but just the guy, their expert they use. And this guy schooled me so hard, like told me about all this stuff. He actually worked with the government on a project to create jet fuel from bio mass or from something, any sort of plant, some kind of plant. You know how we make ethanol with corn and stuff like that. But
Right.
he actually found a type of grass that would produce the most, I guess, methane for the amount of time, like the whole ratio. Versus, a lot of people look at cannabis for creating some kind of alternate fuel or corn or whatever it is. But this guy found a grass that was better than anything else. A very interesting conversation. I need to go and find that one again. It's probably last year sometime, but very good one. Yeah, it's sometimes you find gold, and I'm not always looking for a farmer or something, but like that's why I created multiple shows. I'm multifaceted, but I also like to talk to anyone that's got a professional aspect to them. I've had chiropractors on, I've had authors and different things like that. So it's always somewhere for you. Have a good one, Billy. Billy, we'll have to get you up sometime. Billy said something earlier about being too shy on the camera. That's why StreamYard you can do this, and I'll show you guys my old like 17-year-old self. I think. Hey, ladies, how are we? Yeah, you can still do that and get yourself out there more. I think the fear of being seen too much in public. We actually just talked about it Thursday, agoraphobia and necrophobia or whatever. And I think people are so afraid of that, but yet our stuff is out there, guys. Like you're hitting accept on the apps, on the like it's out there. That's what made me think, okay, I'll just be public about things. Because then you get people that want to defame you or say something about how your character, but yet you have hours and hours, hundreds of hours of yourself live that totally like contradicts this opinion. That's what I liked about Rush. People would say things about how crass he was, or how he's just a pompous, misogynist pig. But if you listen to him long enough, you understand his sense of humor and you understand what he's actually saying. And that was his biggest defense. Like, boom, he's got, what was that? He had some service that would keep track of his accuracy, and he could just pout you with how accurate he was all the time. It's like, hey, whether you like what I'm saying or not, here's my rating on how it comes true and stuff like that. It's kind of funny. It really makes a believer out of you. Like, you're like, okay,
What was that, an app? What was that? That was
it
able
was
to...
an institute. What was it? I mean, I can almost hear his voice right now. I can hear your voice, Rush. Come on down to me, my friend. It was the Brookings. No, it wasn't the Brookings Institute. It was some institute. The something institute, and they got him at like a 97% or something like that. I forget what it was, but yeah, good times. He really started it all off with well, maybe not. There was other people before, maybe, but that was a podcast. That was what podcasts are now. It's just it's a like a radio talk show.
I think that's a good segue to what I kind of don't want to talk about it, but I'll touch on it for a minute. But was just how, and it's never happened to me. I don't think it's happened to any one of us. I don't think in the area of people saying you said something or promised something. And I think we all operate. I think the three of us that are left here, we definitely operate the way what we do in a very business-like structure, because this is what we do, right? So I will say, especially this year, what is it our military does? I'm not a military guy, but they're always ready for war, even though they may never see war in their lifetime, right? So, not saying we prepare for war, but there are people that the latest one was Billy Carson and West. Actually, it wasn't Billy Carson and Wesley Help. It was Billy Carson and his friend, where they had a falling out, and had it all been disclosed in the very beginning, whether you sign paperwork or you have some kind of agreement where it's witness, whatever. I'm looking forward to this year for a lot of big things happening, but I also want to be prepared to make sure I don't get caught with my pants down. You know what I mean? I think,
Right.
especially that we, all three of us, the way we operate, this is kind of our livelihood. This is what we do, right? And so, for good measure, moving forward, I'm definitely gonna make sure that there's always a clear understanding. Hey, before we do this, this is, and I look at it as I want to protect our friendship, right? That's how I look at it. I want to protect our relationship, maybe not friendship, but I want to protect our relationship. So there's a clear expectation. Hey, this is what we're going to do today, you know. And I'll share one story, and I'll turn it over to you guys. But there's this one. I won't say who, but I did a conversation, and I never did actually put it out, but it was where things kind of went very strong. And we talked about this earlier about having strong opinions. And for some weird reason, I wasn't good enough, or wasn't able to steer the conversation to where it would be positive enough to where there would be any positive outcome. It was just almost like we were not I guess you see, we were kind of arguing back and forth. And it didn't quite work out. And I just had a feeling I probably shouldn't put this out there. And I'm glad I didn't, because I just don't know. Who knows? What was said could have been misconstrued, and who knows, you know? So I'm sure you guys have none of that in your history.
I can give you one story. Early on, I had a partner originally, my friend Jameson, and I think we recorded 3 episodes together, and I think only released 2 of them, one or 2 of them. Anyway, when you're first starting out, it's harder to find guests. We were finding people in like Facebook forums for, like podcast guest connections and stuff like that. Anyway, had this one guy, and he talks about religion and stuff like that. And we were, we're both very green at the time. So we don't, our confidence of like interrupting somebody and like countering somebody, it just wasn't there. And we interviewed this one guy, and I don't want to like say the wrong thing, but he kind of he relayed this kind of concept about like he can't judge what's right or wrong for something else, and he used rape as an example. And I'm like, me and Jameson were both kind of like, neither one of us chimed in at the right time, and then the moment passed, and we decided not to air that, because it's like, yeah, the last thing either of us want to portray is that like we're okay with what he was saying because we just disagreed. But that moment had slipped away for us to really address it in a timely fashion, because it was just, and I don't think I think he meant well with what he's saying. It sounded weird, and we knew it could be misconstrued. So we forgo posting that one for sure. So it happens. You can't control people.
That's the difference between live and pre-recorded, because that's happened live, and for me, the best way around that is to just address it the next episode. So like, hey, there were some things said last night or whatever. I didn't catch it at the time, or whatever happened, like sometimes I'll be putting comments on the screen, and one of the comments is something like really nasty towards the person on the screen, but I'm not paying attention to what the comment actually says. I'm trying to keep up with the comments because I might have a busy show that night, and then everyone's just commenting, and I'm having fun putting the comments up. And one of them is like, "Hey, who's that fat girl on the screen?" Whoa, my bad. I didn't mean to put that on the screen for more than for at all, really. But and so I just try to address it later, especially being live. I had one just recently on a game show at the end of the show. He might be watching right now, but we got through it. But it's like, we're going to address it right now during the show live, instead of getting into the private messages for hours afterwards. You know what I mean? Like, let's just get through it here and now. And then, and I think people respected that. So,
Yeah.
That's a good question to ask a guest that maybe they're not comfortable. Would you prefer going live or do pre-recorded? And I've never had an issue personally. I have had a few people that had to walk them through the live process. But for the most part, people that I've had are comfortable with who they are, and they have nothing to hide. What I do tell them, however, I do tell them in the beginning, I always ask them, hey, is there anything that is off limits? Because I don't want to go there and make you uncomfortable in a live setting. And most of the time it's, no, there's nothing. And I said, but if there is, I want you to just give you the freedom to say, you know what? I don't think I want to answer that. And I said, I'll be fine with that. And I always try to tell them, I don't want to be disrespectful. I'm not that kind of podcaster anyway. I don't ask questions that are provocative. But I do ask them beforehand, hey, this is live. We're going to be live on, whatever, 5 or 6 different channels, and we're going to put it out on, Spotify later. So I always try to give them that understanding. Hey, if we go to a place where we're not supposed to, you just say, hey, can we talk about something else? Yeah, it's fine. And it shouldn't be awkward, because that happens to me in real life. If I ask a question to a family member or a friend, we're at their house, and they're like, I probably shouldn't talk about it. It actually happened with Joe Rogan and
Zuckerberg.
No, well, before him, beard guy. Oh, what's his name? Oh my God, Mel Gibson.
I didn't get to see that one yet.
So it was great. Mel Gibson started talking, right? And Joe Rogan was like waiting for him to talk, and Mel Gibson was like, you know what? You know what? I probably shouldn't talk about that. And then Joe Rogan goes, that's fine. You can just tell me later once you turn the cameras on. We'll talk about we'll talk about it later. And that was great. I love that, right? Like, Mel Gibson was comfortable enough to say, you know what? I can't really tell the story. I can't, because once it's out there, bro, it's out there, right? And people will screenshot it, screen video capture, and it's out there. So I will say, Artie, will you ever transition to doing a live broadcast style of podcast, do you think? Or do you like your space where you're at?
Yeah, I definitely would. I'd be happy to do live. Like I said before, a lot of my concern is technology. I don't know what technology people are using on the other end, and I don't want to do a live stream, and maybe I'm just not using the right tools, but I'm using Riverside, and I can set up live through that. And when I have tried that, the quality isn't great if they're not using good equipment, and it's like, I don't want somebody to have to watch a blob talking. I want them to be able to see the facial features of the guests, at least,
Right. That's one of the things that got my attention when we first started talking, was your attention to detail. I don't know if you remember that. I really that got my attention, where good quality, good audio quality, there's smooth transitions from large to smaller screen. You're the small guy, there's a big guy.
Yeah.
Those are little details that people don't really pay attention to, but they appreciate it, not knowing that they appreciate it.
Yeah.
Especially the audio thing. And so that, I tell you what, if you do live anything, to me it's easy. Going live is easy. I love it.
Yeah.
But when you do something that you want to honor your listeners with the highest quality possible, now that's a different ballgame, because now you've got a bucket with holes in it, and you just put in 2 gallons of water, and there's holes. You should plug up every hole to make sure you've got a good production at the end. So that's the live version of it. That's how I would describe it. So
chaos. Yeah. Live is chaos. Yeah.
Today's a great example. I'm not picking up. Of course, I want to pick on Nick because he was on his cell phone, but you see what I mean, right? Now you got different variables in the conversation. You hear the car starting. I could hear the fan blowing because he had to cool off his phone.
His audio was off for a while from the video. Like, I don't know if you guys saw that, but that's just the problem with the network, and you're gonna have that.
Yeah, and that's part of it. That's part of going live. But that's where you got to make that decision. Are you willing to deliver that to your the how should I put it? The fix around that is I didn't do it today, but always record your audio separately, aside from the software, just in case. It'll be a good backup. So I think that's been a saving grace, especially the Amber Champagne podcast I did. That saved me for my Spotify and my Apple Podcast listeners.
When did you have her on?
I don't know, last year, or like early in spring, I think. Yeah.
Must have been not too long from when she was on my show. Yeah, she does a lot of more spaces though. And I think we have to branch out as video live stream, or as not live streamers. Like you kind of have to learn, like you are, Artie, you're in a live stream now. So you kind of have to get out of our comfort zones in a lot of ways. Not necessarily, maybe that's not your all the time medium, but being able to branch out to those is important, at least to dabble, get in there a little bit. I'm going to have to get going pretty soon, my friend.
Yeah, we're going to land a plane pretty soon, actually. It's nice to have people that have equipment, Amber has equipment.
Yeah.
So.
And whenever I have somebody who's on a laptop microphone, it'll work, but it's people think that they're going to sound as well as like they record a video and they listen to it. It's like, no, you got to bring this up to production level. That means anything in that audio signal that's a little noisy is going to be even louder. And you can use, certain plugins to get rid of noise and stuff like that. A great one is Supertone Clear. That's an AI plugin that can get rid of ambient noise and even some of the reverb of voice. But yeah.
Is that available on Mac? The plugin?
I believe so.
I'm sure. What's it called? Supertone? Is that what you said?
Supertone Clear. I think it's on sale right now for like $70.
I have a ton of plugins that I don't know how to use. So if I have an AI one, it'd be nice.
Yeah.
Helpful.
It's 3 knobs. Really easy.
3. Okay.
Yeah.
I'm sold. 3 knobs. I'm sold.
Yeah. What do the 3 seashells do?
Yeah. I'll tell you what. Let me just let's bring it in for a landing. We can do part 2 if we feel led to do one. One of my thinking was, I don't know, do it quarterly or do it. I don't think monthly would be feasible for me, but just give people something to look forward to in the future. I don't know. We'll talk about it later. But let me say this. For 2025, do you guys have some big goals set for 2025 for what you're doing?
Yeah.
Always.
Let's hear them. I want to hear one of them.
Are you talking something that's attainable? That's not just goals, but goals that we think we may actually accomplish. That for me would be the real life stuff. My business. See, a lot of my content comes from me doing the work and recording myself doing it, and so there's a hard balance between spending more time on the computer, making cool videos and editing and songs, and this is great, I love doing this, but then it pulls me away from the stuff that I'm actually trying to learn. Like I don't love plants. I didn't grow up loving plants. I just realized the importance of the fact that every person has to eat, and so what I'm doing is like there's not many things more important than the fact that we all have to eat. I mean, there's medicine involved in food and everything. So me pushing myself to get into the plants more for 2025 and actually have customers with products and things. And so, but that does affect my show and everything because all of that's going to go up in value. Sometimes we chase the value in like just asking more people to follow us versus the value in just making our content better, getting more, doing more with what we're actually, planning to do, whatever. If that makes sense.
Yeah.
I think it goes without saying. Your next big thing, obviously, keep me updated. I want to support you for sure.
Oh yeah, I have. I've been lining it up. So I do a review show, and I do reviews for local businesses, small businesses, events. I mean, I went to the Capitol building for a lame duck session. I've been to, wildlife preserves. It gets me out of the house, and it gets me talking to other entrepreneurs to see, they're out there doing it, And so there's a lot about it that's involved with self-sustainability and an entrepreneur, that same mentality. But what I'm getting at is that on the review show, I've done a lot of reviews for restaurants. And so those are people I can come back to and say, here's a product, give it a try, tell me what you think. And, kind of have a roadmap already lined up. So I just have to get going. 2025, let's make it happen.
What you got for us, Artie?
Oh, it's kind of hard to say because I'm in the stage of like organizing. Sorry, dog's upstairs. I'm in the stage of like organizing my systems right now, and I feel like once I get everything organized, that gives me the ability to step back and then come up with my attack plan for exactly what I want to do and what I can do. So it's hard for me to say right now because I'm in the middle of that. But I want to keep getting good guests. I want to once it gets warm, I want to explore the possibility of going on site to some places and interviewing people in their environment, like animal trainers, zoos, stuff like that. I think that'd be so cool. Actually, it would be quite the dream because I loved Johnny Carson clips when they used to bring on animals, and big Steve Irwin fan. I used to watch his stuff all the time. So animals are like a big passion of mine. So yeah, that's pretty much it. I'm just gonna keep growing.
So we're gonna have Artie do one of this out there in the water. There's saltwater crocs there. Yeah, be careful. They're gonna get you. One of my dreams this year is praying and believing that we're going to get a physical venue. But obviously with that comes revenue, right? You gotta have revenue. So that's a big one. We've been looking at warehouses and office buildings for the past year. Just there's one that got sold literally right down the street. That was one of our. We always would see it. We always look at the listings, and it just seemed just so far away financially because it's such an expensive place, but it would be an ideal situation where we could have, and it wouldn't just be obviously for podcasts. It would be for multi-purpose. We do media production, conferences. We'd have a separate place for church services to have that as well. So that's definitely a dream. I don't know if it's going to be an actual something, but I do believe the in-person is the bridge to that. We did a podcast at a restaurant back in October. That was fun. It was stressful though. It was so stressful just getting the equipment and forgetting the extension cords. I gotta run back to the house, go get the cords, and by the time I'm done, if you watch the podcast, it was great, it was good, but I was out of energy from the technical aspect of it, that I didn't realize that my pants were dirty. So if you watch the podcast, there's dirt all over my pants. I'm like, my wife is like, oh my God, your pants are dirty. But yeah, I think that's the dream,
I had this thought recently. I think it'd be cool. I'm owning a restaurant isn't a big passion of mine, but I think it'd be kind of cool to have either own a restaurant or have a partnership with the restaurant where you can film a podcast at the restaurant, order some food for the show, so you can be interviewing somebody. Maybe eating wouldn't be the best idea during a podcast, but like you're just kind of sitting there enjoying in a restaurant kind of environment. Maybe before opening or after closing, probably before opening, but just something like that. That kind of atmosphere would be really cool to interview people in.
I don't like that either, man. Eating on the podcast doesn't make sense, but you know what? More people than we can imagine enjoy watching other people eat. I don't understand it myself, but it is such a thing. Oh man, there was like this one video, like, and it gets so much, hundreds more, viewers than what I'm getting like live. And this one, I'm not going to explain it too much, but the comments were like, you don't have to show it to us before you eat it, just eat it. They're just like, eat more of it. It was just really crazy. Like, anyway.
So the one that I did, I approached So where we are now, there's no sushi restaurants, but we found one. I'm like, my wife and I, what? There's sushi here? They actually. And so, anyways, I ended up meeting the owner because we're the only ones that are not, we're not white people, and so he automatically came up to us and we've eaten there. We just talked about it last night. We ate there like at least six or seven times. So we became friends, and I just asked, hey, can I do a podcast here? And so the exchange was I do ads for him and some social media things to help them out because they don't know how to do that. But the one that I will say is that you can't just tell them to stop working, So you can hear the clanging of the dishes. You can hear the phones ringing a little bit, or I can hear it. And then you hear all the DoorDash orders coming in. So, but it was fun. The only thing that wasn't fun is that if you don't talk about it, well, obviously if you're at that level, it's not an issue. But I think we spent like over $300 something just on food, to feed my kids, and we fed our guests too. So we fed him, and I'm not. It's not a regret. It's just that there's cost on top of the time and having my wife and the kids. They were there 3 hours, 3.5 hours, almost 4 hours. No, 4 hours we were there. Yeah. So it's kind of a commitment to do those on-site things.
Yeah.
And that's just us. So can you imagine if we actually had a real team of actual professionals doing all this? It's going to be more invested. So
yeah,
I am ready for rapid fire. I'm going to ask both of you guys, unless you want to do a reverse rapid fire. But you guys cool with the rapid fire? We'll do 10 questions and we'll land the plane.
Yeah,
Sure.
You guys can answer at the same time. All right. Question number 1. Why did you guys do this podcast today?
I enjoy you. I enjoy talking to you. So anytime I feel a good vibe from somebody, I'm gonna say yes to collaboration.
Oh, I felt like I had to. You made me do it, so we're here. There was those photos that you were going to release if I didn't make it in.
Yeah.
But, I don't know. I mean, I like you. I think we're like-minded on a lot of things content-wise, and I think collaborating is about the only way we can grow and do positive networking, which is like, instead of clout chasing and reply guying all day long, like the fact that I can be live right now in 2 destinations while you're also live, like that is ultimate collaboration, and a lot of people don't take advantage of that.
Yeah.
I'll tell you why I did it. I did it because you guys are great. But also I appreciate what you guys do, and you guys are very consistent in doing it. That's very hard to do for people that have a life outside of social media, or I don't even consider it social media. I think social media is attached to what we're doing.
Yeah.
Right. So I appreciate that. And obviously having iron, sharpening iron, who wouldn't want to do it? And so I appreciate you guys. All right. Question number 2, Pepsi or Coke?
Neither.
Ooh. Okay.
Yeah, neither would be the right answer. But if I had to choose one, it would be Pepsi.
Okay.
It might be Coke for me, but Mexican Coke.
Yeah.
There you go.
I don't drink Coke or Pepsi, but yeah, Mexican Coke, that's legit. Those Mexicans, man, they make it amazing.
Ever since Coke put out their memo to their employees a couple of years back where it said, be less white, I was like, well, I don't know. I feel like that company has gone downhill a little bit there. We'll just go ahead and really silly, which means like don't be on time, I guess, and don't like do math or something. I'm not sure. It was really stupid, but it came from Coke to their employees. Isn't that crazy?
That is crazy. Question number 3, raw beef or raw fish? To eat.
Raw beef.
Do people eat raw beef?
Yeah, it's good.
What? Like, how do you eat raw beef?
Go ahead, Waylon. You do yours.
Well, you can just eat it, but there's like different ways to do like the organ meats and stuff like that. I've never eaten raw beef. I'm just saying what I would pick if I had to pick the two. But I know people eat raw beef. Yeah, pate they call it. right? Pate.
So there's one called my wife had just had the other day, other week. Honey, what do you call the one we ate where they mix it with the egg?
Yeah,
the raw
you just
egg?
had one. I thought it was like a pate, but maybe
What's it called?
The Don Buddy?
Tartar, beef tartar. That's what they call it.
tartar. That's what it was. Okay. What's up, Bean?
Yeah, they mix it and you eat it with the toast, and it's got the egg, the little.
I remember you played the video. You put a video up
At
about
the
it.
steakhouse.
Yeah.
Yeah. I made a video about it. Yeah, it's raw, but if they put citrus, it kind of it's still raw. It's good though.
Isn't that how sushi is though? Don't you have a little citrus with sushi or no? I'm not.
No.
That's ceviche. Is that
Ceviche, yeah, ceviche.
Yeah. I'd probably go with fish because I like some sushi, but I've never eaten raw beef. So
Never eaten raw fish either, but so I don't know. Have you eaten both? You've had both now, gLO?
Oh yeah, I love. If I had obviously raw fish is my favorite, but raw beef was very enjoyable. I do think you want to eat raw beef that's, I mean, outside of the obvious, have a good cut, have a good butcher, but have the least amount of fat in it. It's more enjoyable. So, yeah. Okay, question.
I've been on the carnivore diet, and I tell you what, when you're on the carnivore diet and you're in ketosis, that fat is the most delicious
it's good.
thing. Like everything just tastes like you just feel like this, like an animal. You just want to just eat it all. It doesn't matter what it. It's crazy.
I had beef heart yesterday. That was good. So if you're in a carnivore and you don't take multivitamins, definitely eat like organ meats, like beef liver or beef hearts. It'll help balance out your nutrition. So, okay, question number 4: money or finances or logistics not an issue. Where do you go on vacation for 30 days?
I'd say Greenland. I want to go check out the new territory coming in soon.
It might be somewhere in Africa, but I'd say Germany. But honestly, I love places with a nice beach.
So many. Like that's such a hard question. Like you're making it. Like I hate the questions of like what's your favorite of something, and then because it's like it depends on the day,
Yeah.
You know why I asked the question? A lot of people think it's just random. It's not random. Part of the exercise is when this is for me now. When I think about a question like that, I immediately start thinking about number 1, finances. I start thinking about, can I do it? Obviously, where would I go? But then I'd also include who would come with me. So a lot of those questions are kind of like where you start painting a picture in your mind. And then if you can overcome some of those things, then you start focusing on the location, right? So mine would be Japan, hands down. 30
Why
days.
30 days? Why 30 days though? Like that seems like a long time for vacation.
Well, see, that's the thing, right? So me being from Hawaii, I've had people come to me and say, like, they get excited. Like, oh, wow, I used to live in Hawaii. I said, oh, yeah, you lived in Hawaii. And they tell me where, and it's always Maui, right? I don't know why. And it's, oh, how long did you live there? Oh, about 3 months. And I'm like, you're on vacation, buddy. That's not living. When you live somewhere, you actually commit yourself to the culture of the people. You actually get immersed. I'm not saying that they didn't live there, but that's my. So when I say vacation for 30 days, it gives you. I always tell people, if you're going to go to vacation in Hawaii, for example, don't do the 3 or 4 days. You're not going to get nothing. You're going to get the tourists, hula skirts, and the beach. That's it.
Yeah.
Usually the first week I tell them, hey,
All you need.
do your tourist stuff the first week. The second week, go find some local families and go spend time with them.
Just go knock on some doors. Hey.
Yeah. And if you can afford it, the last week, just hang out and just do nothing.
I've heard about Jamaica like that, man. You walk away from the main resorts and it's a different world. Like you don't just go walking down a random like dirt road somewhere because it's not a good idea.
Yeah. I'm gonna change my answer. It'd be Australia.
Ooh.
Oh, nice.
You just have everything I want there. Animals,
Crikey.
beach.
I don't know about those beaches though, Artie. Those
rainforest,
beaches are deadly.
You wrestle a wallaby and
They have 4 of the most deadliest water creatures in the world that can
There's a
kill you.
lot of deadly creatures down
Yeah,
there.
the box jellyfish is the most venomous animal in the world. That's
The octopus. They have the octopus.
the blue ring octopus. Yeah, I
So-
saw a video a few years back where somebody was playing with blue ring octopus. They just had it on their hand. I'm like, it was on Snapchat or something. I'm
That's
like,
crazy.
this is insane. That's one of the most venomous animals in the world.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, I might change from Greenland. I was kind of kidding, but kind of not, because there is this like a warm season for a month or two in Greenland, which would be really cool to see, because it's an island that has no roads everywhere. Like they don't have like there's no like major transportation. So like, yeah, I'd like to go to Bahamas or whatever, but I think that would be very touristy, But what Bean had said earlier, you need a vacation from your vacation. And I'm like, that's true, because vacation is so much work.
Yeah.
Lugging all of your stuff somewhere, spending a lot of money, which can be very emotionally draining, like as you're going, just blowing it on whatever and souvenirs and stuff. It can be not a lot of relaxation happening.
Well, maybe in the next few years you'll be able to go to Greenland without leaving the country.
Yeah, that'd be cool. Can I go to Puerto Rico without leaving the country right now? The only thing is you have to float back on like a big pile of not good stuff. Yeah, I feel bad though. I'd love to start going there, because I think if we could make it a tourist destination, then maybe the dollars would help them able to because they never recovered from the devastation not too long ago. Like, was it a hurricane or something? But that's its territory. Can we travel there? I know you can travel to Canada. There's a certain area in Canada, I think one of the provinces, that I forget which one, that you don't need a passport to travel there.
Pretty soon, we won't need nothing. We just check a card, right? Yeah, pretty soon we're
gonna Quebec. We're probably gonna let them keep Quebec.
There'll be the 52nd state, because Puerto Rico will be 51, and then Canada will be 52.
There's no good way to make a new state. I think the best way would be to divide up the reps and be like, one has to be one party, or like you force the first year, but then how would it go from there? That'd be weird. Anyway,
that's all for that's for Dr. John and Nadine Ness. They're going to be future guests of mine. That's for you guys in Canada. You guys were welcome to the United States, family. Okay, question number 5.
Yeah.
Cybertruck. You got to pick one: Cybertruck or Ford F-650.
Cybertruck.
I'd probably go the Cybertruck. Yeah.
While you guys are stuck with no electricity, no power due to a natural disaster, I will plow right through the flood-ridden streets with a Ford F-650 and honk my horn. Honk, honk.
Whoa! So you're painting a very specific picture here, gLO. You're telling me you have easy access to a gas station, and you have like all of that still working. It's not flooded or like on fire or anything like that, so you can just go fill her up. What if I have my little solar panel that I can set up and take 3 days to charge my Cybertruck? I painted a better picture.
That's a good point. That's a good point.
I'd love when I see people laugh at the Cybertruck when it comes up and they make fun of it. Oh, the stupid looking thing. They have no idea what they're looking. They have they have zero recollection of what it even is or why it looks the way it does. I love that whole conversation, because there's a specific reason that it looks all funky like that. But we don't have to get into it. But yeah, definitely pick the Cybertruck.
No, I love the Cybertruck. Just so for the record, I love it. But there's a lot less people that have the Ford F-650. Extremely.
I don't even know what that is. Is that just some kind of
Do you know what it is, Artie?
I just looked it up, and it's way too much truck for me. I would never use that.
Those are probably not even comparable. The Cybertruck's like a luxury SUV. You're not hauling a lot of stuff in it. I mean, some, but
imagine those semi trucks.
Yeah, I drove them.
Now imagine that as a pickup truck with a quad cab with a huge truck bed in the back of. That's a Ford F-650. Basically. Yeah, so anyways, I win that one. Okay, number 6. What is
I disagree, Bean. Sorry, I got comments. See, he goes right into hating on the Cybertruck. It survived an explosion pretty well. Anyway.
Okay, let's answer that, because Whistling Diesel, you guys ever heard of him?
No.
He has a YouTube channel. He proves that the Cybertruck is not a durable truck according to his standards. So you just got to watch the video. But okay,
it's not a work truck though. People are. I don't think
Oh.
people. The people are trying to use it like it's some kind of like your everyday pickup. You know, it's a.
Well, I disagree. I would disagree with what I said, but you got to watch the video because he does some crazy stuff to this truck. Like he literally launches. I mean, you just got to watch. So look
I think
up.
I've seen it. Did he have like decals on the truck, like caution decals all over it?
And then he had like concrete blocks. He had blocks in the back of it. He just going 100 miles an hour in the wilderness with this concrete blocks in the bed of his truck. Yeah,
just trying to test it.
Yeah, he beat it up. Okay, question number 6. What is your dream setup if you don't have it, or if you do have it? What is your dream setup for a podcast studio? What like equipment? Just throw out some if you have a wish list.
Dream setup.
Yep.
Just like you always have to buy better equipment. You always have to like no matter what like you have. I'm sure Joe Rogan has to replace his mics. You know, like you gotta keep mess. Like I've tried several different kinds, and I can tell you what, I still have technical problems no matter how much money I spend on it. No, how expensive it is. There's going to be a point where like I have to, like today I couldn't get in right away. I had to reboot my computer again for my mic, for my camera to work, and it's a new fancy camera. Shit, crazy.
I think I'd have. I mean, I love my microphone. I'd use an SM7B for the microphones. That's what I have already. For chairs, I've been thinking about this. I almost think I might want love sacks as the chairs, like bean chairs or whatever. And then I think I'd want some like screen where things can be displayed so we can look at them. I think Joe Rogan has that with his guests, right?
Yeah.
And then, aside from that, it would just be about the aesthetics of it, just making sure that everything looks the way that I want it to.
Yeah.
Obviously I like a lot of like colorful stuff in my room, so it'd be like that.
Probably change it up here and there, right? And then we all would like to have a producer pushing the buttons. And this is another dig at Theo. Sorry, gLO. I gotta dig this one at Theo again. The other day he was like, I forget who he had. Oh, he had it was like an older podcast I was watching with Tony Hitchcliffe on Theo Vaughn, or maybe it was newer. But regardless, he was like, yeah, you're doing this. You're doing such a good job. He was puffing up Theo, and he was telling him how good he was. You're doing and all by myself, and this and that, all by myself. Bro, you're not pushing but you're not doing this by yourself. Get yourself out of that mindset. Like if you didn't have, and I hear him through the podcast, they're like, hey buddy, can we do that? Hey man, can we, like, does he even know the guy that's in his house pushing buttons? I don't think he's probably just paying a guy because he started with enough money to be able to pay someone. Like to have someone that close, like Bean says, Brian Redband or Jamie from Joe Rogan, like to have that kind of close relationship, you got to be with somebody from when they're nothing, when they were just starting or whatever.
Yeah.
And that's the hard part. Like family and friends, they look at you like you're nobody until you have enough money that suddenly they catch your eye, or you catch their eye or whatever. But it's sad. It's a sad truth. But yeah, everyone who can push the buttons are probably going to do it for themselves. That's the problem. If you can already do that work, you're probably already doing it for yourself. You know.
I think my dream setup is my own office. If you go on my Twitter profile, my banner image on the top that's my old office. And I would love to have that set up, the ocean in the background. And the only problem with that setup is that it's got like a 30-foot ceiling. I think 30 foot, at least 30, probably 40-foot high ceiling. So that's the issue. I'm with Artie. This mic, I don't know if you have this, Artie, but I have a relationship with this thing. It's weird. It's really weird because it's so reliable, so dependable, and it's so easy. I have like 3 or 4 mics that I have as well. My wife has the MV7X, which is a lot cheaper. Now, I'm not saying she's not. I have the one with the cloud lifter built into it, so I love it. So it's a little bit more expensive, not that much. It's like $100 more, but
Yeah.
I love it. It's like these things last forever. And one thing that got my attention was when I saw Michael Jackson using it. I'm like, okay. And then when I finally was able to afford it and get it, I'm like, I'm so glad I went and made that investment, because
How much does one of those run?
you can get them on sale for like $370. I think I've seen them on sale on Amazon for $370.
I think 370. I thought they were like $500.
I need to spend more on my mics. That's
Now
for
this
sure.
one is 400. At regular price is 400. Wait, no, I'm sorry. Hold on, my wife is
Yeah,
right
they're
here.
400.
I used this one for a
This
long
one is
time,
500.
Yeah, because you have the cloud lifter in yours. I have it separate. I have another 250 into the cloud lifter because I have the one that has like
This is last year,
max
honey.
gain. And still, for some reason on Riverside, I'm always quiet for guests. I have to put my gain up higher than I would like.
I think I have mine at. Let me look. It's at. I have mine at 18, so mine is 18 plus my board. So I'm running into issues with hissing. I got to figure that out. But yeah. So yeah, I take that back. So this is $499, I think. So the one without the cloud lifter, I've seen them on sale. So tempted to get it, to get another one.
Yeah.
Sorry, I'm watching my
Giving
my
them
wife.
eyes. Yeah.
But she
Lord.
has the MV7. That's great. It actually sometimes it sounds better than mine. I don't know what. It's obviously a mixing issue. I got to learn how to mix. I'm not good at mixing. So, okay. Got sidetrack on question. All right, question number 7. If you could bring somebody back from the dead and put them behind a microphone and just do an interview with them, who would it be?
My grandfather.
Oh,
He served in World War II.
wow.
He's 100% airborne. And while he was alive, my mindset wasn't there to really like dive into that stuff with him. So I would love to talk to him.
It's a good answer.
Dude. I
I'm
ain't gonna
gonna
lie,
use the same.
that hit. How'd you do that, Artie? What the heck, Artie? What the heck? Hold on, give me a second.
I thought about that question a lot.
That's heavy, bro. Like, that's heavy.
Because everyone, usually it's like
Wow.
Abraham Lincoln, some president or some, dead famous person, but it'd be my grandfather.
I love that. This is going to be a clip now for sure. Wow.
I was gonna say Rush, but I actually think I'd like to talk to my grandfather too. I met one, but I was only like a couple years old when he died, and I didn't meet the other one. So it would be nice to talk to the grandpa. One of them, the grandpa that I did meet when I was a baby, he was in the military too, so it would be kind of a cool conversation because I was in the military, so it'd be kind of, be able to compare notes. My grandfather actually took his own life when I was a baby because, and this is a crazy story, but he was one of these guys that worked at Caterpillar for ever, had this crazy pension, and when he goes to retire, it was all gone. Grandma had spent it all. Can you imagine what you would do with yourself? Like, that was just, incredible, like, story. When I was told this, I'm like, I don't know, I would almost think about ending it too. Like, you just wasted, he was a God-fearing man. gLO, it was with the Bible in his hand when he did this, like, which is really, really the saddest part, because how that goes. And it's like, that would be a man I'd want to talk to, just from everything, not just from the end, but like, his whole life. Wow, good one, Artie.
That's why I do this. Right there. I'm not saying all the other conversations were invalid, but that's why I do this. What Artie just said. I was like, wow, that's legit. That makes this whole podcast worth it. I'm not saying it wasn't worth it, but you know how important that answer was, Artie? Bro, you have no idea. Legit. I was just thinking about my father-in-law, who I had never met. because when my wife got married, he wasn't able to give her away. And so when my wife walked down the aisle, her three brothers walked her down. And one of the questions I would ask my father-in-law is, I don't know what I'd ask him. There's so many questions. Crazy. I never met the guy. I'm crying about him. But I love that. Okay, just shut up. Okay, question number where are we at? Number 8. Question number 8. If President Obama came into your house, what would you ask him?
I just need to use the bathroom.
What did you ask him? That's not going to be a good one for me. I wouldn't expect an answer no matter what I asked him. So I don't know. Probably nothing. What are you doing here?
I'd ask him what it felt like to watch the guy that he said would not be in the White House win twice for the presidency. I'd ask him what that feeling is like to tell a guy that he will never be president and then watch the guy become president twice.
I think he would say, well, sometimes you win some, and sometimes you lose some.
No, hold on. Just hold on a minute. Just let the man talk. I would ask him, what were you and Trump laughing about at the funeral?
Oh, that'd be good. Because, with that, you wonder if it's like, are they actually getting along? Or is it like, like camera getting along, but underneath there's some stuff going on? Because that's kind of what I would think is most likely. Because it's hard to believe that they actually respect each other or like each other.
I always think of pro wrestling, though. Like Trump even has some experience there. I think if the government hasn't looked at something like pro wrestling and thought, well, we could use that to our advantage in some way, like it's literal, like thousands of years of storytelling. And it's a simple, not to be conspiratorial, but like if there's not something hidden in the government that we're not privy to, then I would be, you can shave my head, like, I mean, I don't know, like, there's almost zero possibility that there aren't at least some people that like each other behind closed doors, but actually have these, like, like rappers have a beef. They start a beef on purpose with each other to like get some attention going. And same thing happens with politicians, like, hey, I want my constituents to think I'm fighting for them, so I'm going to start this beef with the other guy, like about beef this time. Like,
it's messed up though, because we're seeing families split apart over politics. So if these people are really getting along, like, that's something that they should be displaying. They should be displaying that civility between them and not displaying just the animosity, because the example that's being set right now is that it is okay to completely shun people because of a difference of opinion.
I think there is a legitimate animosity between them. But for the sake of the American people, they don't go to those dark places. That's my opinion.
Yeah.
I'll flex a little bit. I did see Trump twice in person, not at political rallies, but at business conferences where he was a speaker, keynote speaker. And I will say that he is who he is in business is radically different than in politics. He used big words, but not overly complicated, where you had to just like accept what he had to say without really knowing. He actually spoke very well. He had notes on those 2 occasions. Very respectful, very encouraging. I think when he got into the political arena, it got very nasty. Not that he became a nasty person, but I think he had to he responded as such. I met Obama in person. He was a guest, and we were basically being concierge to him and the family, and he's very gracious in person as well. Very respectful, very eye contact. Part of that I think is I can't speak to his character. I just know that in person he's very cordial. Now, what I do believe with Trump the answer to the question was what were they laughing about? I feel Trump's laugh was genuine. Like it was really funny because if you look at Trump's all of his interviews, he rarely smiles like that. When he does smile like that, it's because he's actually laughing about something that's funny. The evidence of that is when Trump was telling Joe Rogan, there's a lot of people they're coming after me, they hate me for this and that, and Joe Rogan says, I can tell you why, because you said some pretty crazy, and he swore.
Yeah.
And Trump, you can see Trump, well, and then he started to laugh, and you see that same smile. So I would like to know what they were laughing about. Part of me feels like probably like, I got you. Yeah, you got me. You know what? Hey, you deserved it, and probably laughing about. But I agree. Hey, if they have a genuine, the public should have some indicator of that. But
I saw a pretty funny. Maybe I shouldn't say this, but I did. I'm just
go
gonna
ahead.
I saw a pretty funny somebody's interpretation. They said, "I know what Trump was saying to Obama. Orange is the new black."
Probably that would be something laughable for them. I agree.
Well, think about these guys though. Like the ego doesn't go away just because you put a suit and tie on.
Yeah.
The same, like just like I was saying with rappers having beefs between each other. The same like ego that like celebrities have with each other happens in the political realm. It's much more personal than we like to think, or like that we like to admit. The same thing goes with podcasting and online. Oh, it's just Facebook. Oh, it's just X. You're what, a content creator? Aha, okay. But that stuff is very personal, because especially those of us who are like smaller creators still trying to build, you're using your personal life as content a lot of times to show people your genuineness and your ability to be personable to regular people or whatever it is. And the guys at the top have to do that too. They act like it shouldn't be personal, but it's damn personal when you got like tabloids trying to find out your little information and all this stuff.
Yeah. Well, and with the presidency, like Obama can't do anything to what Trump is going to do. Like, so
True.
Trump is going to unravel a bit of Obama's legacy. That's 12 years in the White House that he spent building that legacy. So
I see what you did there. Okay. Question number 9. I'm trying to structure it. I have the name written down, but I'm trying to structure the question. So number 9, here's the question. Elon Musk and Mark Zuckerberg in a no-holds-barred MMA UFC style fight. Who wins?
Musk. I mean, he's just so much bigger. It matters.
It does, but it also matters. Like, I don't know if they're both training, then yes, I would say Musk. But I don't know how much training each one of them is doing. I would have to guess that Zuckerberg's doing more training because he's like in this like mode now, professionally and personally, like fight or flight kind of mode, where he's got to make some changes. He's making huge changes in his company, so he's probably training extra hard just because that's a good outlet for stress and a good way to. And he's found it now, and so once you find that, it's helpful. And everyone around him from that, I didn't finish that interview with him and Rogan, but everyone around him says they like him better now that he's training. So he's probably going to be training a lot. Yeah, Musk is a lot bigger though, but people are saying Zuckerberg's gained some weight, gained some bulk on him. Get the right hold on you, get the right hold, and Musk is tapping out.
Yeah, that's a good point.
It's a tough match because they both were. I don't know. I'm not trying to say like I know them, but they're both in the tech industry, not in the same field. But I would give the edge to Zuckerberg only because I look at him, I feel like I think he's that kid.
Yeah,
he's younger too.
Well, like when I say that, he's like that
younger.
kid that he's got so much pent up anger and resentment and frustration of all those years of being bullied as a kid. Like when he gets in the ring, he's like, "You're that guy."
Yeah.
It's like, "You're that guy." Yeah.
There's a big delay on Facebook, just in case you're wondering why. Like a lot of the responses to what we're saying is coming like a couple minutes later. Yeah, I agree with that, Colin, for sure.
Here's one. Brian says Zuck wins. Now, I agree with Artie that Elon Musk is bigger, but if you watch an interview where Rogan asked him who wins, and Elon is kind of arrogant. He says, "Oh, I don't need to trade." He says, "I don't need to trade." I was like, "Oh, please
I didn't
don't."
see that.
Yeah, he actually said, "I don't need to trade," and he laughed. I know he's trolling, obviously, but still,
Right.
That's why I'm saying you can imagine Zuckerberg's watching that interview. He's like, "Oh, that's why I'm gonna get you because you're arrogant and I don't like you." So, but yeah.
Yeah, I didn't know that Elon. I thought Elon did something like maybe at least now, like get into shape or to now that he knows Rogan, maybe they both do some jujitsu or whatever. I want to get into some jujitsu as well because I'm getting older, and they say it's better on your joints and better on all the impact. You can do some impact, but not as much, I guess.
Yeah, it's good as long as you stay away from the young guys. The young guys will they'll test you and they'll exert their strength on you. Okay, question number 10, and this is the final question. I always ask this for my personal. And it's a generational question. What is your guys' desire for the next generation?
I think we need to be more in tune with what really makes life work, and that is the survivability, the sustainability thing. I know I'm getting wordy here, but what I'm trying to think of is the right word is I want kids to know where their food comes from or know why plants are important. Not necessarily that I want every kid to grow their own food. I don't want not every person can do everything, but I want people to just have a little more awareness of how important it is to know a farmer, know where things are coming from, and to not outsource all that knowledge to labels and big companies that craft is craft, right? No, craft is 100 years old, and it's not even, there's nothing about it the same, right? So my point is we just have to be more aware about where our stuff's coming from, the stuff that we have to survive. There's a lot of stuff out there, whether that's clothes or equipment or tools, whatever, but food is like the number one in my book. And that's where medicine comes from. So medicine's the only thing I can think of that's anywhere close, like doctor knowledge, actually setting bones and doing medicinal. That's the only thing I can think of anywhere close. So I want the next generation just to be more aware. That's all. What it is we have to do, whether you do it yourself or homesteading or whatever or not,
I want the next generation to remain free. I think with the technological situation that we're in with AI and everything, we're at an increased risk of totalitarianism over the coming years. And I would really like to see future generations remain free and able to choose their own destiny.
That's a good one. I like that. I like the idea of America slowly branching out by way of countries that might want to get in. And I know we're joking around about Canada and stuff, but eventually, we're getting way off topic, but eventually the whole world, we're already too connected. We're right now we have big countries that have egos still to try to vie for power, but really we're still one world. And if we could do it in a peaceful way over time and just become slowly more connected versus people taking land by force, which is the way we normally do things, that would be great. Yeah. Spread freedom in like a way that people are asking for it, not forced it. You know what I mean?
No.
I think the connecting bridge for the both of you is freedom. Right? What for people that don't know Waylon, this is my perception, what Waylon preaches, he's not a preacher, but he is kind of a preacher. What he preaches is for you to have freedom in your life, from the foods that you eat. And so Artie, what you shared about the free, I agree. And for, on top of what you guys said, one of the things I desire, starting with my own family, is for our kids to have the freedom to become and do whatever they were called or created to do or be, without having to worry about the stresses of finances. You just be who God called you to be. Mom and dad will make sure we give everything you need to do and become that. And don't choose a college education based upon the money or the finances. But if that's what you want, if that's what God called you to be, then go do that. Go be that. And we don't want the finances to be an issue. There's too many people that their generational bloodline is based upon because this is what mom and dad could provide. This is all they could do. So I guess I'll be a, whatever. I'll be a farmer, or I'll be a plumber, or I'll be a doctor, whatever, because this is what I want our kids to have the freedom to do that without. One of the biggest stresses to any marriage is finances.
Yeah.
Right. So that's one of the things that this coming year, I'm hoping we can deliver something of value to the marketplace in the area of finance. I can't say it right now, but I will say this. My business partner and I, we made an agreement in the upcoming months. We're going to deliver a product where it'll be in that area of finances. So we'll just say budgeting. We'll leave it at that. And so my tank is full. Waylon, where can they find you? Tell people where they can find you.
Just one quick point on the freedom thing. I think all three of us were mentioning freedom in different ways. And I think it all leads back to the ultimate financial freedom. The ultimate freedom personally is to take more of responsibility under your own umbrella. It might sound like, oh, I got all this work to do, but that's actually freedom. That's what freedom is to do it yourself and however much of it that you can. And then the freedom is that you get to make those choices. That's why I got into farming, because veterans were looking at farming and doing a lot of farming because no one's over your shoulder telling you what to do. You're doing it yourself. You're free to make your own decisions. And so I love that. But they can find me on X and Facebook, of course, all my Facebook friends hanging out. The Indoor Farmer, go check it out. Waylon, the Indoor Farmer on Facebook. And I'm on Kick, X, Rumble, Twitch. I don't know why I'm on Twitch, but I'm on YouTube. But YouTube, no love on YouTube either. But yeah, find me on X or Facebook or Kick.
No. I agree with you, Waylon. I think freedom is responsibility, and it's everyone wants freedom, but a lot of people don't want to take the responsibility for their freedom. Like, if you want to be free to have good health, like, it's a responsibility. You got to read labels. I mean, I wish it weren't that way. I wish the FDA did a better job of protecting health, but yeah, freedom is responsibility, and that's important too. It's an important point you made. Yeah, you can find me on X, RDTM Podcast, on YouTube, Instagram, Thoughtfully Mindless. I have I'm on Thoughtfully Mindless on LinkedIn and Facebook as well, but I'm not as active on those. So main platforms are X, Instagram, and YouTube.
Well, I appreciate you guys. If you guys don't mind hanging out in the green room, and I just want to do my final goodbyes once we're off air. You guys cool with that?
Yeah.
Okay. Appreciate you guys. Family, I just want to say thank you for spending time with us. For those of you that endured for the 3.5 hours, I appreciate you. Make sure you follow everybody that was on here, and I'll put all the links in the description on whatever platforms you're on. And just thank you. And there's just so many things I want to say, but for the sake of time, I'm going to just land the plane. Thank you for your time, your hearts, super hearts, your data, all the good stuff. But most importantly, thank you for your time above everything else. And I hope that the exchange of your time for what you learned today, or what you heard, or what you experienced, or what you laughed at today, it was worth the exchange of your time. So on behalf of all of our podcasters, our families that labored not having us in the room with them for the past 3.5 hours, thank you. And so until next time, as I always say, love you guys. God bless you guys. Ahui ho. Aloha and mahalo. Yes, sir. Chihu.